Order. Good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for attending. The rules, as we have previously discussed, ask that everyone extend the same courtesy and respect to anyone that you would expect or want for yourself. Please, there's no talking while others are talking. Public comments are not questions, they are statements. And so you're permitted to give your public comment, but you have a total of 3 minutes. When the buzzer sounds, we'd ask that you please stop speaking. With that being said, roll call. Abbas Kamara. Here. Controller O'Connor. Here. Rich Fitzgerald. Steve Forrester. Sheriff Kraus.
Jack Kearney.
Terry Klein.
Here.
Pat Katina.
That's pronounced Bethany Hallam.
Who's missing? Gail Moss is absent. She said she could not make it today. And then Judge Lazara said she's unable to make it as well. So with that being said.
Point of order, Judge Halsey. Yeah, I wanted to object to Steve Polarski participating in the meeting. He is serving as an illegal designee for the county executive, and so I do not believe he should be able to participate.
So with that being said, we'll now go to the community corrections report. Passages to recovery.
Hello, my name is Candace Crosgrove. I'm from Passages to Recovery. Right now, our total census is 34. Residential is 30, TLF 4. We have 21 men and 13 women. 3 of our TLF residents are working. 1 residential is working. Our residential community board has started. They have elected a president, vice president, secretary, and 2 active community coordinators. We will begin working with project rehabilitation through the public defender's office. Literacy Pittsburgh will be providing digital skills classes and workshops, and PAR will begin providing parenting in the know groups.
Any questions, Ms. Hallam?
Thank you. I have a couple questions for you. So out of the people who it says exited, is that people who were kicked out of the program?
So I just moved into my role last week, so I can't give you exact numbers on that right now or what the information is on that, but I can find out.
Okay. Can you explain to me what happens when a person is expelled from your program?
So again, I don't want to go into too many details because I don't want to give you the wrong information. Like I said, I just moved into my position last week, so I'm still like getting the ropes of a lot of things that are going on.
Well, welcome to your position. If you could
you.
just confer that information for whoever is coming to the next meeting, if it's going to be you going forward. I specifically want to know, like, what are the common reasons that people are expelled from the program, and when somebody's expelled, if that means that they automatically go back to jail, or if there are other places that someone is sent to once they're expelled from the program.
Sure.
Okay, thank you so much. That's all I have.
The Renewal Center.
Hi, my name's Darren Hood. I'm with the Renewal Center. Our program census is we have 73 in work release, 17 in inpatient, 90 altogether. Our employment percentage rate for the month of March was 67%. Average wage rate was $14.81 an hour. We had no staff COVID issues, no reentrant COVID issues. Renewal is partnering with the Foundation of Hope. They have a lot of services that alternative housing population would benefit from. They can assist our reentrants with various resources such as clothes, housing, transportation, etc. Renewal also reconnected with the Trade Institute of Pittsburgh, who is excited that they are able to offer their trade services to our reentrants. The program is a 10-week tuition-free masonry program, and with an option for students to participate in a 7-week carpentry program for free as well. Upon successful completion, students receive certificates and are paired up with a variety of jobs in a trade-related field at competitive wages. So far, there are 4 county reentrants currently enrolled and participating in their masonry program.
Any questions, Ms. Hallam?
Hi. Same actual questions for you is, so on it, we have exited clients versus clients who successfully completed. Are those clients who successfully completed included in the exited clients number? Like, for example, says there were 34 clients who exited and 21 clients who successfully completed. So I'm wondering if that 21 is part of the 34 or if those are 34 people who were expelled from the program.
I don't have those numbers currently with me as far as the breakdown. So
Well, that is the breakdown that was in the report, in the warden's report that we were given. So I know that those are the numbers. I'm more just trying to understand about when it says somebody exited the program, does that mean that they were expelled from the program?
they could have absconded, escaped. They may have been returned.
Okay, and can you speak to what are the main reasons that people are expelled from the program? So they're included and exited even if they leave voluntarily?
Some of the reasons for revocation could be drug possession, drug usage, just program failure, just on different levels, not participating in assigned prescribed programming.
Okay, and are there specific program plans the ends have implemented to try to reduce the number of people that are expelled from the program? Because it's just kind of concerning to me seeing how close those two numbers are. Like 21 people successfully completed, but then 34 people exited the program. And so I'm just wondering what you're doing to reduce the number of people who are leaving the program and not successfully completing.
We work daily on trying to, retain individuals. I think the numbers that you received there, probably last month we had a high abscond or escape rate for whatever reasons, and that goes up and down throughout. Some months we don't report very many at all, and others, last month happened to be a high month.
Okay, thank you very much.
Would it also be reflected as a person leaving the program if they were perhaps sent upstate to serve a sentence, or would that be a different?
Yeah, there was a few that we had that basically they were detained, went to their court hearing, and charges were upheld.
Okay, so then they would leave the program at that point to go begin a state sentence.
Correct, and we had, I believe, at least 2 or 3 this past month that occurred with.
All right, thank you.
So that would be 2 or 3 out of the 34?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Electronic monitoring.
Good evening, Board. Steve S. Wine for the Probation Office. So for the reporting period, we had 630 individuals under supervision at the end of the month. Judge Halsey, of that, 103 were pretrial cases, so just to update you on that. We did have 100 people successfully complete during that time period. So.
All right, any questions?
Similar questions for you as well. I know it's a little different because it's not a residential program that Anns are talking about. But I would say specifically, what are the top reasons why people do not successfully complete their electronic monitoring?
Well, you have individuals who will get new charges, get arrested while they're on the bracelet. And then the other top 2 would be somebody who tampers with the equipment, cuts their bracelet off, or tries to mess with it some other way, or just egregious window violations, approved leave times.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. With that being said, we'll now do the public comments. Again, if you've signed up on the sheet, you'll be permitted to speak. Public comments are restricted to 3 minutes. Marion Damick.
Okay. Well, I'd like to start off, one down. I'd like to start off with something good. I'd like to. One, you have a director of nursing. I said, terrific, really. We should, yes. A year, it's been 4 months. In any event, that is good. Also, it's not good, you still have 88 vacant total vacancies, but you've done part-time staff or whatever. And you've been trying to do something for the medical staff, which I think is good. The other thing I'm talking, in fact, with Ms. Allen, you might have seen it in one of the newspapers, We seem to have a lot of newspapers now, different ones. In any event, she's going to be introducing a motion, which I'm going to say I think is an excellent idea, to pay the inmates who are doing some work in the institution for you by putting money from the case into their getting their what do you call it? I'm sorry. Giving them what is it?
Commissary.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. I'm as a speaker who pays your taxes, and that most of you are earning, I approve of. So that from the public. Moving on. Back in November, which isn't that long ago actually, there was a report. And I thought we ought to start looking at some of the questions and priorities. 1, 2, and 3 I'm taking up very quickly. And I would like to know if we could get some answers, I wouldn't expect today, but next month on some of these. Is there a nurse now doing thorough assessment at the procedures when someone comes in? The recommendation, priority 1, was to have a nurse, a certified nurse, looking for abnormal vital signs, et cetera, initiating, document, detoxicating. Improve identification of those who are in self-harm. Have we heard, is anything going on with that? If it is, terrific, we'd be happy. If there isn't, this is November, and you know how many months? If it started, that would be somewhat good. If it hasn't been, that's you normal.
Ms. Damick.
To say that. All right, institute hands.
Ms. Damick. Ms. Damick,
Is that my fault?
it's your time. I'm sorry. That's your time, ma'am.
Institute hands-on man-down drills for all staff.
Ms. Damick.
Hands-on man-down drills.
That's your time.
Oh, you can't hear me?
No, I can hear you.
I'm sorry. I am sorry.
That's your
Whoop,
time.
whoop.
You've exceeded your time.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No. You've exceeded your time.
Stay down there. Okay, what? My time's up?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, well, look at them anyway.
All
Look
right.
at the first 3 and see what you have done,
Okay.
and I hope to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
But
very
the
much.
other, at least there's something good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pat Murray. You know what? I was remiss in asking you to please state your full name, spell your last name for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Pat Murray, M-U-R-R-A-Y.
Thank you.
I'm a PIN member. I've been coming to these meetings since last September when Pitt School of Social Work presented the survey of inmates. I found that report and these meetings extremely concerning, which is why I have kept coming. While there are many areas for concern, today I'm focusing on adequate levels of doctors and nurses, and I was so glad to hear that you hired a chief nurse. I believe you don't have a chief doctor at this point. And there also are the levels of pharmacy and mental health staff that are of concern. These are basic services that are vital for us all, and certainly for folks whose freedom has been removed from them. In the Pitt survey, we heard about incarcerating folks not getting their meds as prescribed. And with regard to supervisory staff, again, glad to hear you have a new head nurse, but that's certainly a concern in terms of medical staff, both to provide direct service and to supervise other providers. No or minimum group therapy. So these are services that people who are in the jail often need. So I don't know how this is going to improve the chances for returning citizens to successfully rejoin their community. In the warden's report from March 2023, there were 162 positions allocated for various levels of medical staff, pharmacy-related staff, and mental health staff. Of those 162 positions, 88, or just over half, were unfilled. How long has this been the case? So one of my questions was, who is guiding the ship? Now, we have a head nurse, so we'll get hopefully some guidance there. We do not have a head physician, I believe, at this time. I wondered if the Jail Oversight Board and the warden considered that aspects of the Allegheny County Jail are deterrents from keeping qualified staff, and just consider that as a possibility and what you might do to improve that. Incarcerating folks waited for trial are forced to live in the jail with this major staff deficiency that are necessary for their basic health. So, Warden Harper, now that the county council voted unanimously to repeal the residency requirement, I'm wondering, what is your plan to fill this much-needed vacancies at the jail? We hope that your staff is doing everything in its power to hire and retain qualified health professionals. Lives depend on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Darwin Luba.
Good afternoon. My name is Darwin Leuba, Leuba.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm speaking today to once again urge the board, but specifically the Controller's Office, to use its statutory authority to enforce contracts related to the Allegheny County Jail, including contracts held by political campaign donors. By violating their contracts, Allegheny Health Network and Summit Food Services are causing harm to loved ones and staff within the jail, while they continue to profit from a steady stream of unabated taxpayer dollars for services they are not providing. By not sending staff or medical personnel, they increase the strain on existing employees, drive up the county jail's largely forced overtime costs, which were $9.7 million last year, and they steal taxpayer dollars that should instead be invested in our communities to tackle homelessness, addiction, poverty, and violence. The staffing audit is separate from the issue of present-day enforcement, especially given that the Summit Food contract is set to expire at the end of this month. We know that Trinity, the previous food vendor, was also in violation of its food service contract, yet that contract was allowed to expire with no reparative action taken by this board or the Controller's Office. It has been publicly admitted that AHN is not providing medical staff at the level required in its contract, and a Summit representative has openly disputed that it is responsible for the food service staffing clearly specified in its contract. We know the violations necessary to enforce these contracts already. We are all here today because of issues in our county jail. Some of them will require long-term engagement to solve, but the issue of contract enforcement is one that should happen today and will immediately improve the quality of healthcare, the quality of food, and reduce the severity of the jail's ongoing staffing crisis, especially in light of the NCCHC report stating that mental health screening and evaluation is essential. Along with non-emergency healthcare requests and services, it is critical that the mental health staffing shortage and other medical shortages be addressed immediately. I urge the board to read the jail contracts because better health and nutrition standards and future requests for proposals are useless if the Controller's Office is unwilling or unable to enforce them. Thank you.
Thank you. Charles Lewis.
Good afternoon. My name's Charles Lewis, Lewis.
Thank you.
I'm here. I'm from Duquesne think tank group, and it's going to be short. But you talk about the overpopulation of the jail. You have quite a few parole violators you're holding in the jail. Why are you holding state parole violators in the county jail and paying for them? When it used to be violators would be taken out of the county system and put into the state system to wait trial or whatever they have to go through, the parole violation trial or whatever, or if they have new charges. But you still have to go back to your state penitentiary. And my question is, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to question. comment is, why is the county jail holding them and paying for it? And it's coming out of the county assessment or whatever, you know. There's that, and actually, it's the first time I was here. I'm glad to be here. You'll be seeing me more, and I'll have questions ready and everything. I just wanted to see what it was about. But that's one of the things that, you know, got to my head was about the parole people. You know, I know it used to be, if they'd come into the county jail, they'd say, I'll see you in a week, I'll be gone. Got to go back to the state system, and they pay for them. That's what I was wondering.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe this is Ann McStay, perhaps?
My name is Ann, A-N-N McStay, M-C-S-T-A-Y, with lots of consonants. Okay. I'm here with several PII and ACJ task force members, speaking also as a taxpayer seeking the best investment and use of the county's funds. We appreciate being able to make public comments, and also I really want to thank you for your attendance at this and lots of prior meetings. Because it gives us a chance for you to hear us, and we appreciate changes for the better, such as the head of nursing being hired. We still have concerns for the welfare of incarcerated persons. The ACJ management, with your support, has increased some services, and I understand is working to improve mental health service and so forth. And again, I'm happy with that appropriate use of my taxes for such care. I want to see my tax dollars spent as productively as possible. The jail's budget is the largest financial commitment for the county every year, and it is a means for us as citizens to address not only immediate need to hold perpetrators of crimes responsible, but also to work longer term toward the safe and productive reentry of incarcerees back into civil society. So every step that the JOB takes to require and support provision of a safe, healthy environment for these individuals is something I not only commend as a moral imperative for our community, but also a practical approach to rehabilitation and reentry for incarcerees. These are people who otherwise very often go back out through prison gates without preparation or material support for regaining a livelihood, a good place to live, and reconnection with their families. The JOB can do a lot of things to continue improving outcomes for incarcerees when they're released back into the regular world. Healthy, nutritious food is perhaps the most basic thing that we should provide for every person in the county's care. It is human decency, and it's a good investment. Healthy people are much more able to learn and to function appropriately in society. Okay, access to approved prescribed medicines and essential health care for illness and injury is as important as eating healthy food in sufficient quantities. Affordable, ideally free contact options for incarcerees, their loved ones, and their legal representatives help incarcerees and their families, especially children, who we want to grow up to be good citizens trusting us, to maintain mental and emotional health and stability. And consistent nonviolent interactions and status checks by prison staff on mentally or emotionally unstable carcerees can help keep them alive and prevent legal exposure for the county, which again saves taxpayers a lot of money. Please continue to invest our tax dollars wisely and practically in sufficient staffing, good food for incarcerees, appropriate medical and mental care for them, and regular, affordable, timely family contact for both standard visits and when emergencies occur, so they can immediately be in touch with their loved ones and know their status. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, ma'am. Sharon Bonavolia.
Sharon Bonavolia, B-O-N-A-V-O-G-L-I-A.
Thank you.
It is noteworthy that there have been no deaths at the Allegheny County Jail since September 21st of last year, and we at Penn are grateful to the Jail Oversight Board and to jail administrators for the changes put in place that have significantly reduced suicides and attempted suicides. These changes were made based on recommendations by the NCCHC Suicide Report and acknowledged in their most recent report on the deaths at the jail. I would like to remind the board and administration that the NCCHC involvement for both the original suicide report and the most recent death report is a direct result of community members speaking publicly here at the JOB and pressuring for an outside investigation. This is a great example of the importance of discourse between the JOB and community groups outside the restrictions of this public format space. I'd like to thank Judge Housey for agreeing to an impromptu meeting with two of us from Penn this week. We at Penn have asked from this podium to meet with the JOB and have been rebuffed several times due to busy schedules and even due in part to personal frustration over our deeply held disagreements with the JOB's lack of action. This is precisely why we need dialogue. As the book of Proverbs states, iron sharpens iron, and a healthy debate over the best ways to ensure the ACJ mandate to both secure and care for the incarcerated is continually improved is a goal both the JOB and we community groups share. Again, according to scripture and science, it takes high heat to refine gold. None of us in this room should back away from heated debate that leads to saved lives and improved conditions at the ACJ. Therefore, it is essential that the new liaison be required to meet with community groups, especially those of us who have shown up consistently to demonstrate our concern for the welfare of the incarcerated and their families. We are looking forward to seeing that as part of the official job description for this new liaison position. And we still hope for direct conversation with the board. And now I respectfully will once again acknowledge those 17 individuals who have died since April of 2020. Please remember and pray for the families and friends of these people who are celebrating Easter, Passover, or Ramadan without their loved ones lost while under the care and supervision of the Allegheny County Jail. Richard Lenhart, Robert Blake, Cody Still, Daniel Pastoric, John Brady, Martin Buchek, Robert Harper, Vinkley Harris, Justin Brady, Paul Allen, Roger Millspaw, Paul Spisak, Gerald Thomas, Jerry Lee Ross Jr., Victor Joseph Zelenek, Ronald Andrus, Anthony Toloda.
Thank you. Alan Gunther.
Thank you.
Terry Klein.
Hi, my name is Alan Gunther. That's AlanGuenther, and I am with the Quaker Working Group Against Racism and the Pittsburgh Peace is Possible Coalition. We're asking tonight that a Jail Oversight Board member submit these questions to Warden Harper so that we might get answers. Please submit this list or add your own questions and release the answers at the next JOB meeting. These are the questions, and these are adapted from the 19 ways to fix the jail that we submitted without response in January. So first we're asking, please Notify the families. When we met with Corey O'Connor more than 2 months ago, he promised to introduce the following motion. Families of jail residents and the Allegheny County Jail Oversight Board are to be notified immediately of any unscheduled prisoner visits to the hospital. Since then, you all have done nothing. Families always have a right to know when a loved one has been hospitalized. This is common decency. Please stop stalling and act. Stop strip searching children in the jail. During the January JOB meeting, a question was raised about why juveniles in the facility were strip searched. The jail administrator said that any jail resident could be strip searched by guards at any time, but we believe that children should not be in the jail and that they should not be treated as adults. Further, children, no matter if they are suspected of committing crimes, deserve to be treated by people who are trained in how to deal with youth. We want to know how many youths were strip searched in the jail during the last 12 months. What precautions are taken when a child undergoes a strip search? Rethinking the jail plan. What is the status of the $700,000 plan to rethink the county jail by redesigning the facility to reduce the number of people housed there to about 500 to 1,000 people? That would be a welcome decline from the current population of approximately 1,500 people in the jail now. What's the status, and how can we participate in the public comment? Translation services, especially in intake. The county should provide translation services for people in jail, especially in the intake unit. We have been told that people who don't speak English have a difficult time telling jail personnel about their medical history, prescriptions they are taking, and other needs. Translation services are available in the courts. They should be available in the jail. And please give the prisoners food overnight. Don't have 14 hours pass. It's inhumane to deny anyone food or drink for 14 hours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Tim Stevens.
Good afternoon, everybody. Pardon the absence of my suit, coming from an anti-violence work.
Can you please state your name?
Tim Stevens, Chair of BPEP, the Black Political Empowerment Project, co-convener with Valerie Dixon of the Greater Pittsburgh Coalition Against Violence. I want to reinforce the request of Alan Gunther of Peace is Possible Coalition and the Quakers. We don't need to restate them. You've had them for several months. All we're asking is that there be action and implementation. I'm asking if you all have had your own internal conversations to literally review all of the recommendations that have come from Penn, from the Black Political Empowerment Project, no? Now that is sad, because all of you are the ones who have been appointed to look over the county jail. And with all the meetings that I have attended and others in this room, I missed a couple where others were representing BPEP, I see no reason why you all have not sat down and literally gone over every point that has been presented and asked, can we move on this? How quickly can we move on this? Is there a reason that we can't move on this? I want to thank Judge Housley for meeting with representatives of Penn this week. So hopefully that is some movement. We want to support that. The folks who are holding the names of people who have died, would you hold those signs up? I want you to look at those names. because those names stand for families that will no longer have their loved ones for Passover or Easter or any other holiday because they died in our jail here in Allegheny County. Those are human beings. The good news is no one has died since our activities from September, if I heard correctly, and that is some progress, but the progress must be permanent progress. And please don't forget why you're here. You're here to make sure that no one else dies in our jail. You're here to make sure that those who are under your jurisdiction are served appropriately, that there are no roaches on their plates, there's no mice droppings on their plates, that they're getting medications. I went to the doctor the other day to make sure I take a pill in the morning to make sure my blood pressure is good. Last time I went, the doctor said it was excellent. But I was down to just a couple. And if you have someone in this jail who's not taking their medication on time, that death is under you. Or the absence of progress is under you. Think about it if it's your mother, your brother, your sister, your aunt, your uncle, your relative, your loved one, your friend. Make it personal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Will Anderson. Sir Will Anderson. I'm not even going to try this name. It looks like it starts with a C. Candace, I don't know. Can you read that? I cannot read that. Can you read that? I don't know. Anyone here that signed a sheet? Their name starts with a C. Last name.
I think it was the Passages to Recovery person signed in because it says at Passages to Recovery.
Okay. Thank you. I couldn't read that. Jody Lincoln.
Jody Lincoln, Lincoln. Today I'd like to remind the board of an important duty that's going to be extremely relevant in the next 12 months. From the PA General Statutes, Section 61, Chapter 17, Subchapter B, which you should all be extremely familiar with, but based on the way you operate, I often question it. Section 1724, Powers and Duties. A, General rule. The board's administrative powers and duties shall include the confirmation of the chief executive's selection of a warden. This is also reiterated in section 1726, covering the warden. A, appointment. 1, the chief executive shall appoint a warden subject to confirmation by the board. With a new county executive in our future, or any other reason that might see the departure of Orlando Harper, I urge the board to take their duty to approve the new warden seriously and act with integrity, transparency, and the best interest of the people incarcerated at Allegheny County Jail while making these decisions. A quick history on Warden Harper's appointment. Thanks to the meeting minutes on the county controller's website, transparency, yay, we're able to track how things played out 11 years ago before Warden Harper was appointed. Judge Housey and Gail Moss were on the board at this time, and I'm sure Marion, you were there too. Public comments, you were the star. So anyways, the county actually hired a firm to conduct an applicant search and solicit interviews. Then there was a job subcommittee that approved a number of applicants for these consultants to interview. And then after recommendations from the consultants, the committee was supposed to narrow it down to 3 top candidates, have those candidates meet with the executive and the board, and then get the board approval on a final candidate. Now, the board didn't meet in July and August, so there's a 2-month gap. But by the September meeting, there was a single recommendation from the committee to the executive, and in October, they were introducing Mr. Harper as the new warden. Now, maybe things happen behind closed doors or at the executive sessions that this jail oversight board seems to love so much, but there is no public record or official minutes of a board vote and approval outside of a note that a recommendation of a single candidate was made by the committee and not the full jail oversight board to the executive. The statute clearly clearly states a confirmation is needed, and the board should make sure it does so this time around. Whether there's an interest in hiring a firm, having a subcommittee, or whatnot, it is imperative that this board does not just rubber stamp a new executive selection offered as a political favor for someone or for an appointment from someone inside the jail who is part of the broken and abusive current system. Thank you.
I believe this says Kana James, perhaps?
Kana, I know.
My apologies. Keena James. Sorry about that.
Good evening. My name's Keena James, Kynajames.
Thank you.
I'm the coalition organizer for the Alliance for Police Accountability. I basically want to talk about the solitary confinement referendum and the lack thereof. You doing anything about it besides finding ways around the law itself? Because that's what it is. It's a law. You know, you can rename it 50 times. It's still solitary confinement. To be a county jail who has the second highest suicide rate in the country, and solitary confinement being one of the most severe cases of mental health abuse is beyond me. We still get reports that your correctional officers are withholding people who are incarcerated from receiving medical attention, which is against the law. We still get reports that you're using chemical agents, which is against the law. You know, over 80% of this county voted for this referendum, and you alone cannot decide to be against it. We're not afraid to take action because that's exactly how this law got passed in the first place. We're not afraid to hit the streets. We're not afraid to take legal action if that is what is needed to get you on board. But people die consistently at Allegheny County Jail. So, you know, while we're here holding up these signs, you know, these are not just names on pieces of paper. These were human beings. And every person who's incarcerated in the Allegheny County Jail is a human being. There's not a single person in there that should be treated like an animal. And just being that everybody's talking about the food situation, I guarantee that not a single one of you would go to the Allegheny County Jail and eat what they're serving these people. I guarantee it, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Brandy Fisher.
Good evening, Brandy Fisher, last name F-I-S as in Sam, H-E-R.
Thank you.
I am the president and CEO of the Alliance for Police Accountability, and I just want to give a shout out to the APA Coalition in the House. Thank you all for always fighting for justice, for standing up and doing what's right. I wanted to talk about three things. One is just correctional officer that has this racist tattoo of a black baby in a noose. I know this was brought to your attention previously, and I don't think a thing was done about it, which is like inconceivable to me. And so I want this on record that the uniform standards were updated on March 13th, which was after this was brought to you all's attention, and not one thing reflected in that uniform update addressed or discrimination, racism, or anything. The only thing that's in there is professional standards, and I wouldn't say that was professional. I'm the CEO of an organization. I would not dare allow one of my staff members to walk around like that. It's extremely unprofessional, but beyond that, it's racist. And so I just want on record that this person should not be working there. If this was a police officer, I mean, police officers have been fired for having things on their Facebook pages. So this idea that I'm hearing that this is free free speech is beyond ridiculous to me. Hate speech is not free speech. And so for him to be serving in a jail that 66% of the population is black, like if a black man sees that, how are they supposed to respond and react? I just think we're putting people in a situation for catastrophe, and that a person should not be employed in that way, residing over people. So I'm hoping that he will be removed immediately, but we're going to make sure that he is. The other thing is the policy of locking down the jail. I don't know if it's a policy or a practice, Warden Harper, but what happens when people protest outside the jail, the entire jail gets locked down, which is why no one protests outside the jail anymore, which is why I think it happened. But you cannot punish people who are incarcerated in the facility for people outside exercising their First Amendment rights. So I would just like on record and also something done about or finding out if this is actually a policy or if this is a practice, and whichever it is, that it needs to stop. Because it's not only unfair, it just seems like it's about control and trying to tell people it's a way of violating people's civil rights by punishing the people that they care about. The last thing I wanted to talk about was voting in jail. We have two important elections coming up that everybody inside that jail is directly impacted by, and that is our district attorney race and our county executive race, and it's very important that these people get to participate in those. In a 2021 report issued by All Voting is Local in the Committee of 70 in Common Cause PA found that only 52 people who had requested mail-in ballots in 2020 general election used an address associated with one of the 18 county jails. And so I know we've been talking about voting and people have talked about it. We come here and talk about it a lot, but I'm really looking for, like, is there something that's being done to address this and allowing people who are incarcerated at Allegheny County Jail on pretrial detention, not convicted, and who have every right to vote, to ensure that they're able to exercise that right? Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel Radke.
Okay, Rachel Radke, Rachel Radke.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm just here tonight to pick up where I left off a month ago. I had been discussing access to medications for opioid use disorder at the county jail. And I cited the report from our health department, accidental overdose deaths in Allegheny County from January 16 to June 2020, where it showed that nearly 1 in 5 of the individuals who die of overdose in Allegheny County were in the Allegheny County Jail sometime in the 12 months prior to their death. We also know now, because of extensive research, that medications for opioid use disorder reduce fatal overdose by 50%. 50%. Now, we don't have any data on the overdose deaths in our county since June 2020, and I'm thrilled that no one has died in the county jail since September. But we won't know for a long time how many people died after they left. Because fatal overdose, the risk of fatal overdose upon release from incarceration, when people do not have access to MOUD, increases somewhere between 10 and 40 times their overdose risk before their incarceration. Okay. Hopefully I have some time left. We'll see. Oh my God. Okay. Evidence-based OUD treatment consists of offering MOUD for people who were not receiving it prior to incarceration. It includes continuing treatment for those who were receiving it prior, and working to prevent interruptions of MOUD during intake, transfer, and release. Okay? Importantly, it is clear that failing to provide this complete range of services, specifically failing to provide methadone, buprenorphine, and naltrexone leaves the county open to lawsuit. Federal courts have ruled that jails and prisons are bound by Title II of the ADA and the 8th Amendment to access to all 3 FDA-approved medications for the initiation or continuation of MOUD during incarceration. Failure to provide immediate and equal access to these medications to people who are incarcerated puts our jurisdiction at risk of significant financial and legal liability. I am happy to continue this discussion with anyone who wants more information on it. I have pages and pages and pages of studies and reports and evidence about this. I consult with UPMC and Allegheny General Hospital on all these things. I'm here to help.
Thank you. Mohammed Nasir.
My name is Muhammad Ali Nasir, N-A-S-I-R. I go by Manny. I'm the Advocacy and Policy Civic Engagement Coordinator for One Hood Media. But the real reason I'm here is to represent the people who are currently and recently released from the Allegheny County Jail. I'm not sure if I said this before, but I've been previously incarcerated there 4 times. A lot of my family, a lot of my friends, a lot of people that I know have been in the ACJ, and I meet a lot of people who are coming out of the ACJ. Since the last time I spoke, we saw 49 people get released outside of the jail. Like I said, we post up weekly, about 3 hours a week, and everybody that we saw, 49 since the last time I was here, we gave each of them $50. We gave each of them resources. Most of them wanted cigarettes, some to drink, some cold water, but most importantly, a little bit of humanity and a little bit of grace that's missing from the ACJ. Actually, I met a guy named Gary who's been inside of multiple jails and multiple prisons, including Rikers, including federal prison, including Sing Sing, and he said that the ACJ was the worst place he's ever been. I know a lot of people say this, and I'm going to reiterate it. Anybody who's been to the penitentiary would rather go there than go to the ACJ. And everybody always blames Harper, and I blame Harper too for the conditions of the jail. But even more than Harper, I think Fitzgerald deserves some of that criticism. The fact that he's not even here, you know what I'm saying, deserves some criticism. So I'm going to call Gary into this space, and I'm going to let him speak his piece.
Hi, my name is Gary Palacios. My inmate number for Allegheny County is 107510. I basically tried to paint in this place when it first opened. When it first opened, it was a great idea, and it had, a lot of good, things about how, single cells and rehabilitation. Now it's just about mass incarceration. That's all it is in my eyes. All you do is you stack us on stack us and stack us and stack us, and there's no health care at all. This jail is absolutely filthy, beyond filthy like I've never seen. There's no air. There's no programs for inmates. There's absolutely nothing going on in this jail. And then you have this new warden that comes in here, and he thinks it's just great to just lock inmates down for 23 hours a day like it's nothing for weeks and weeks and weeks at a time. That's not going to help nobody. All that does is build people that have mental health issues and make them even worse. You know what I'm saying? Then you don't even deal with them. All you do is you beat them up, mace them, and tie them to a bed up on the 5th floor. Not good. Like I said, this place needs a lot of work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tanisha Long.
That was powerful.
Hi, my name is Tanisha, Tanisha, Long, Long. Thank you to the members of the board and Steve Pilarski for being here. I know this takes a lot of time out of your month. I was wondering if anyone on the board read the Spotlight PA and the Pittsburgh Institute of Nonprofit Journalism article about Rachel Bridgman. She was incarcerated at the Allegheny County Jail, placed on mental health tiers 4 and 5. Last month, we heard testimony that there are no default restrictions for people on those tiers. That's a lie. Because of the restrictions placed on Rachel Bridgman, she was not allowed out of her cell. She was not allowed a tablet. She was not allowed a phone. Her family didn't know she was incarcerated for 2.5 months. She thought she could see God. She banged her head off the cell until her face was ballooned to the point that she had to be given emergency care. And no one knew. No one knew until another incarcerated person reached out to an attorney for help. That wasn't even the attorney's client. We just wanted to help. And this kind of stuff happens all the time. When we talk about things like family notification, I know that there have been motions presented that have been asked for board input for ways to notify families immediately when their loved ones are sent to the hospital. And because of the inaction and inactivity and the lack of responsiveness from certain members on the board, those aren't able to move forward the way they should. They don't come up for vote the way they should. And these families don't get answers the way they deserve. That ain't me. So what ends up happening is you have situations like Rachel Bridgman, where no one takes the time to reach out to her family and they believe she's dead, and they hang wanted posters up. And then you read the warden's report and you find out that almost 100 people have received emergency care in the last 3 months, and that the jail population right now is currently it's over 1,600 people, which is a steady rise from where it was 3 months ago. So you have more people, more hospital visits, and less notification. And you're okay with that? That sits right with you? If people are making the active effort, your fellow board members are making the active effort to get family notification to be a must, why are we not doing the simple thing of answering your emails? There's 30 days in a month. February's a little short, I understand. Some months are a little long, but you have time to answer those emails and get these motions on the table. The best thing we've gotten so far is a book committee, but we still don't have books coming into the jail. We still don't have family members who are knowing when their people are in the hospital. We have people getting their asses beaten in elevator by COs. And no one will know unless there's people who can actually go into the jail and verify it themselves, because their tablets get taken away and they don't get to talk to their families. And when they're hospitalized or their arms get broken in an elevator by a CO, no one knows, because you keep everything a secret on purpose. Bye.
Reverend Butler. Reverend Butler. There's no Reverend Dr. LaWanna Butler? Okay. That being said,
Are you going to read the online public comment as it states on your website under 5 minutes?
I didn't get any public comments, so I
Are you sure? Because I have to submit public comment. You haven't read them in a couple of weeks, in a couple of meetings, so we just asked.
Did you send one?
I did send one a couple of weeks ago.
Did you send one this week?
No.
Okay, I didn't get one. So like I said, I didn't get any public comments.
So you just want to override the fact that she said that.
I did not receive any public comments. If I received them, I will read them.
What about the weeks before?
I'm done talking about it. I gave you my answer.
So you want to avoid the question?
So with that being said, we'll have a review of the minutes from March 2nd, 2023. Did everyone have an opportunity to review the minutes? Is there a motion? Well, I don't know. Do we have a quorum, right?
We have 6 on the.
Did anyone have an opportunity to review the minutes? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Comments in those minutes?
Is anyone seconding the motion?
Second.
All right, motion's been, any opposed?
The only thing I will ask Judge Halsey is usually we get the minutes printed out in our preparation packet, if we could get those. I know we get them emailed to us, but if you could print them out too.
Sure.
The young lady who usually does that is not here. She's sick. That being said, we'll now have the warden's report.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is at the Allegheny County Jail.
You know what? I'm sorry. Forgive me. We're going to go consistent with the old order that we've been doing. Old business. My apologies. Old business. We have the IIWF report by Judge Lazare regarding liaison position. You have something you'd like to offer, Mr. Klein?
I want to apologize to the audience that I am responsible that we don't have a name to put forward. I was downtown in preparation on March 14th for the meeting to discuss the liaison. I was distracted, I fell. I hope it's my only trip ever in an ambulance to Mercy Emergency Department. The meeting was canceled. We have not been able to reschedule. And I just want you to know there was, it was nothing nefarious. We desperately want to get this done, and I apologize. I was grieving, and I understand family members now who have lost loved ones, how destructive and painful grief is. Thanks.
And Terry, I would just add, like, we understand things happen, and you're at all these meetings, you care, you wanted to get this done a while ago. So please, no need to apologize. We will figure this out, but thank you for your service to the board and that subcommittee. I don't think you've missed a meeting, so.
I just want people to understand the reason that we don't have I just want everyone to understand the reason that we're not able to put forth a name at this meeting like we had promised.
So Judge Lazare also provides the statistics regarding the ACJ and alternative housing population. As I stated, she's unable to attend the meeting.
Judge Halsey, I'll read that report for her. Yeah, she emailed that to us, so I can pull it up and read it for everyone. If you give me 1 second here. All right, so this is the report about the statistics of people incarcerated in the Allegheny County Jail that Judge Lazare presents every month. Okay, this is as of 4:30 p.m. on April 4th, 2023. 1,510 people were in the Allegheny County Jail, and 120 people were in alternative housing facilities, excluding any people with holds by the federal government. Note that people can be held in the jail for multiple reasons, such as probation and parole detainers, other county holds, or sentences. 6%, or 95 people in the jail itself, are serving a county sentence as the result of a new conviction. 27%, 32 of 120 people in alternative housing are serving a county sentence. 20%, or 302 people in the jail itself, had a hold from an external jurisdiction, including other counties or the state. 2 individuals in alternative housing have a hold from another jurisdiction. 43%, or 643 people in the jail itself, were detained by Allegheny County adult probation. These individuals were detained for violating probation on a crime for which they had previously been convicted. Of those, 87%, or 560 folks, were of moderate or high risk to reoffend based on their probation proxy risk score. The remainder were being held for a variety of reasons, including violent felonies, awaiting mental health commitments or service plans, and other reasons related to their own safety or the safety of the community. 28%, 34 of 120 people in alternative housing, were detained by Allegheny County adult probation. 88%, 30 of 40 of those detained in alternative housing, were of moderate or high risk based on their proxy score. 26%, or 397 people in the jail itself, were held pre-trial only, meaning they had no other reason, such as external holds or detainers, keeping them in the jail. Of these people, just over 1% screened as low risk for reoffense based on the Allegheny County locally validated pretrial risk instrument without consideration of the seriousness of the current offense. 15%, 18 of 120 people in alternative housing were held pretrial only. Only 1 person screened as low risk for reoffense based on Allegheny County's locally validated pretrial instrument. 93 individuals, approximately 6% of the jail population, are currently being held in the Allegheny County Jail pre-trial only on monetary bonds. Of these individuals, 8 screened as low risk for new criminal activity, and all but 1 of these individuals were facing violent charges. Only 7 of 120 people in alternative housing are held pre-trial only on monetary bonds. Only 1 screened as low risk for new criminal activity. All pretrial monetary bond cases are reviewed for possible bail modification. The Allegheny County Jail population, excluding federal holds but including alternative housing, on March 16th, 2020, was 2,075, including 1,859 incarcerated individuals in the jail itself and 216 people in alternative housing facilities. As of April 4th, 2023, the inmate population of the jail itself was 1,510, a 19% decrease. In the alternative housing population was 120, a 44% decrease. The detainer population in the jail itself on March 16th, 2020 was 889, and on April 4th, 2023 was 643, a 28% decrease.
Any new business? Yes.
Yes, so I want to discuss a document that I sent to the full board that we have referenced multiple times in our conversations here.
Before you do that, I apologize, Mr. Kinstowitz. I don't know how I skipped you, but could you please come up and have your 3 minutes? My apologies. I don't know how that happened. I just noticed that, so please forgive me.
Okay, I want to continue talking about the staffing crisis at our jail. Let's review. There are 88 vacancies at our jail for medical and mental health providers. In 2019, NCCHC found 37 vacancies and called the vacancies a staffing challenge. That is an increase of 51 vacancies. We have heard that half the recruiting class of correctional officers left after their first year. Important questions. How much forced overtime are staff experiencing at the jail? How is forced overtime affecting the families of staff at the jail? What is the turnover rate of staff who are experiencing forced overtime? I've mentioned to the board my work as a therapist with Mercy's community treatment team. We had massive turnover on Team 2, where 12 staff resigned in a 13-month period of a staff of 12 people. The daylight, all the on-call shifts, the evening and weekend med deliveries all had to be done whether we had 5 staff or 12. We were constantly training new people. I made over $70,000 10 years ago, which was good money for a social worker, but I seldom saw my wife working 75 to 80 hours a week. Besides empathizing with the jail staff and their families, the point I'm making here is that each person that left told me why they were leaving. The peers at our jail know why their peers left employment at ACJ. 2 critical questions. Why do people continue to work at ACJ, and what can the current staff tell us about why their peers have left? I propose that 4 different staff satisfaction surveys be provided to jail staff, 1 each for medical and mental health staff, correctional officer staff, administration, and ACJ staff who do not have contact with residents. Informative staff satisfaction surveys must be relevant to the experience of staff. Staff's confidentiality needs to be protected, and a third party, such as DHS, needs to provide the survey for the survey to be valid and reliable. The knowledge the board could gain from these surveys would be immense. I have sent the board a job satisfaction survey for correctional officers that was created by my deceased wife, who taught a graduate capstone class on human resources at Carlow College, by the Correctional Officers Union, and by myself. As you can see, there are 12 questions with a standard format used in HR with 2 open-ended questions at the end. What are your recommendations for improvement that would reinforce your decision to continue to work at ACJ? And for your peers that terminated employment at ACJ, why do you think they left? I think we all know risks of more deaths at our jail will continue until we know why people continue at our jail, to work at our jail, and why others decide to leave. We can then create policies and practices to make relevant change. Why is the board resistant to creating a subcommittee on the staffing crisis at our jail? What is more important? I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Ms. Hallam.
Thank you, Judge Halsey. So if you remember, at multiple meetings, we have asked the jail and the warden to give us legal opinions on certain ways that I personally, I don't want to speak for anybody else on the board, believe that both this board and the jail are breaking the law. I have yet to receive, I've waited months and asked over and over again for some sort of legal opinion backing up what the jail is alleging, and didn't get one. So fortunately, county council has a solicitor. And even though this board doesn't, which I think we should talk about later as well, we have a solicitor who gave us a legal opinion. And again, I've held off on this for a month, hoping that the county or the jail would send us something, but they didn't. I shared this with the full board and just want to read a couple excerpts. And again, if I haven't received anything conflicting this, so I'm going to presume that the legal opinion by the county council solicitor is correct. So the first issue was about whether the Allegheny County Jail is in violation of the solitary confinement ban. I think we've heard public commenters, and I think most of us in this room probably know that they're breaking the law, but I thought a legal opinion was more appropriate. So basically, they point out, the solicitor points out a few of the various things that have been brought up in numerous meetings, specifically about how the jail believes that they are not in violation of the solitary confinement ban, and that they believe that there is an exception to the restrictions on solitary confinement when multiple people are confined together. We have heard the warden and jail administration say that over and over again, that it doesn't matter if two people enter a cell together, they can't be on solitary confinement, even if they are not allowed out of their cell for at least 4 hours a day. That is just wrong. So the legal argument that was given about that is that there is a Latin phrase that I am not going to try to pronounce because it is Latin and I don't know Latin, but basically it is that the singular includes the plural and the plural includes the singular, and that the same rule of construction is observed for purposes of the Accountability, Conduct, and Ethics Code in section 5-1013.03 of the county code. So basically, even though the solitary confinement referendum speaks to inmates and not the plural, that it still applies to the plural as well. So whether there are 2 people in a cell together or 1 person in a cell together or 20 people in a cell together, if they are not receiving 4 hours at least out of their cell each day, they are in solitary confinement and they need to be reported, and that practice needs to be stopped. The next thing...
If I may respond to that, you probably forgot. You were in that executive session when the county solicitor came here and gave you a legal opinion as to all of these things. You don't recall?
No, I do not.
You don't recall when the then county solicitor, Andy Zeffie, met you in that room and gave you a legal opinion regarding all.
Do you have it? Because I never received one.
Do you recall being in the executive session when Mr. Zeffie was there too?
Not about this. I would like to continue reading this. I did not receive this about this. We had an executive session about...
Does anyone else recall an executive session where the county solicitor came and addressed all your concerns regarding these issues and offered you an opportunity to ask any questions that you wanted and you had none? Was anybody else at that meeting besides me? Was it just me? The county solicitor was there.
And we got a legal opinion from him conflicting this? Okay.
It doesn't conflict with this because this is your attorney. The county,
this isn't my attorney. This is county counsel's attorney.
The county solicitor, she's interrupting me. It's my turn to speak.
I was speaking actually when you interrupted me.
The county solicitor came and gave you a legal opinion regarding all of the issues that you brought up. Right back there in that room, Andy Zeffie.
Yeah, I have never received a legal opinion from the county solicitor. I've asked for one repeatedly over and over again, yet I provided one to the board, and we were not provided one from the county.
Okay, I guess I was.
Yeah, if it exists, please share it with me.
Because no one's talking to you.
But truly, I would like it to be provided if that exists.
Because you keep coming after me, you're not supposed to even be talking.
Doesn't matter.
Now you're going to have to leave.
Do your job.
Appreciate that.
Okay, so before I was rudely interrupted, I was referencing this legal opinion, which talks about how the jail is in violation of the solitary confinement ban. So first of all, regardless of how many people are in a cell at a time, if they are not allowed out for at least 4 hours, the jail is in violation of the solitary confinement ban. As was referenced in public comment, this was a law that was passed overwhelmingly by the residents of Allegheny County. It is binding on you, Warden Harper, and on the jail administration to follow, and it's not being followed. The second piece of that is in reference to partial lockdown. So even on the jail's own solitary confinement report that is published on the website, and I think it's by the 7th of every month, the solitary confinement report is posted. Often it lists individual pods or partial lockdowns. So addressing that, Section 205-31A of the County Code provides an exception to the restrictions on solitary confinement for facility-wide lockdowns. The section provides that if the facility warden determines that a facility-wide lockdown is necessary to ensure the safety of persons held in the facility, that the prohibition on solitary confinement shall not apply until the warden determines that the circumstances no longer exist. The facility warden shall document specific reasons why any lockdown is necessary for more than 24 hours and why less restrictive interventions are insufficient to accomplish the facility's safety goals. So again, the first requirement is to utilize the exception is that the lockdown must be facility-wide. If the lockdown is only partial, the exception does not apply. So I want to make sure that is very clear, that unless it is a facility-wide lockdown, you cannot do it. The exceptions, the rationale that must be determined if there are a facility-wide lockdown is that 1, the warden determines the necessity of the lockdown. 2, the warden documents specific reasons why any lockdown is necessary for more than 24 hours. 3, the warden documents, I think that's really important here, the warden documents why less restrictive intervention are insufficient, and 4, every effort must still be made to permit daily hygiene and exercise. These requirements are mandatory. They are not up to your discretion. If you're going to do a facility-wide lockdown, these 4 requirements must be met, specifically documentation why less restrictive interventions are insufficient. The legal opinion continues to say that as the lockdowns are only partial, to be valid, the ACJ would have to meet the other conditions for solitary confinement. So again, I have not received anything that conflicts this, so I would just like to warn the board in the jail that this is opening us up to a lawsuit. Not just the warden himself, not just the county, but the members of this board who refuse to enforce this law that was passed. What is funny?
Anything else?
Yeah, I do have more. Thank you very much. So the next thing is the Jail Oversight Board itself, the chair specifically, or the non-chair who acts as the chair, and the other members of the board, in violation of Pennsylvania law by allowing the deputy county manager, Steve Pilarski, to stand in for and vote in place of the chief executive? Again, the statute is very clear, and I believe a public commenter pointed it out earlier, directly reading from the statute, what the board should be comprised of. It is the county executive, 2 judges of the Court of Common Pleas, 1 who shall be the president judge or their designee, who shall be a judge, and 1 judge appointed by the president judge, the county sheriff, the county controller, the president of county council or their designee, and 3 citizens members. The statute provides for certain members of the board to be able to send others to stand in and vote in their place. That is why you, Judge Halsey, are here, and that is why I am here as a member of this board. It provides that only, again, the president judge and the president of county council may appoint a designee. On the chief executive, it simply provides that the board shall be composed of the county chief executive. There is no similar provision to that for the president judge or the president of county council to appoint a designee. There is a canon of construction, again, more Latin in here, that translates to the expression of one thing is the exclusion of another. So basically, because the statute is very clear that the county council president and the president judge get a designee, that means that no one else does. Are you familiar with that canon of construction, Judge Halsey?
Are you done?
I'm not done. I'm asking if you're familiar with that.
I have something when you're done.
Okay, cool. So that means the county executive does not get a designee. If anyone disputes that, I would love to hear the argument as to it. I have not heard one from Judge Halsey. I have not heard one from any other member of the board. I have not heard one from the county executive because he never shows up. I have not heard one from the person who is illegally participating in this meeting in his place. I think that I, as well as the other members of the board, as well as the members of the public, deserve an answer for why this practice has been allowed. I believe that it is detrimental to our oversight work that we are statutorily required to do. And I think that we should not allow an illegal designee to sit on this board, as it opens each of us as members of this board up to liability that I do not feel responsible for. So I am asking that the other members of this board stand up and follow the law. You have all received this legal opinion. If you hadn't had the time to read through it, I would really appreciate if you do. It is not very long and it is very clear, but those are the two basic things in this opinion that I think need to be resolved.
Were you able to ask your attorney, were you able to ask your attorney anything about past practices and how that relates to this rule?
I do not think that I have talked to him about anything about past practices. When I requested this legal opinion, I did make him aware of the fact that this is what the county executive has been doing his entire term. We also talked about the fact that when the current county executive was the president of county council and sat in the seat that I do now, that he showed up pretty frequently, but when he was in a position of power and authority as the county executive, he suddenly stopped showing up.
If I may. And the reason why I asked about past practices, because since this board's inception, the county executive has never consistently shown up to meetings. The previous sheriff routinely sent a designee to attend the meetings, and the previous county controller never attended the meetings. More specifically and more importantly, you, Ms. Hallam, sat on this board for well over a year while the county controller never showed up and sent a designee, while the sheriff on occasion did not show up and sent a designee, and while the county executive sent the other deputy manager by the name of Barb Parise. It is not until now, when Mr. Pilarski has shown up to these meetings, that you've raised any concern or objection. You sat there for well over a year and acquiesced while all of those people send designees. So I would encourage you to ask your attorney, how does past practices, how does that relate to the practice of the county exec doing what has been done since day one and sending a designee that you worked with for over a year and had no problems with?
Yeah, so that was before I was in law school and knew how to interpret the law and the canons of construction. So now that please let me finish, I let you finish. So now that I'm aware of that, what I will ask you is, in those prior situations that you're talking about, did anyone object to their presence in the meeting? Because I have objected at the beginning of meetings, and it still continues. It is barely even acknowledged by you.
You object now.
I object as soon as I was made aware that that was something I could object to.
You object now.
When I was made aware of the fact that objecting
now
means something. So what I'm asking, if we're going to reference past practices, there is a difference. There was not a past practice of someone objecting to the participation during roll call of someone who is an illegal designee.
There was a past practice of people sending their designees since the day the board was initiated.
So we've been violating the law for all those years.
You weren't here.
We, the county.
What is your next issue?
No, I'm very concerned about that. It's not a next issue that I want to move on to. I want to ask you if you think that that makes a difference, that now someone is objecting over and over and over again.
Absolutely, it makes a difference.
Okay, and so why now is the person who's being objected to in clear violation of state law still being permitted to participate in the meetings?
For the same reason that you allowed it to go on for an entire year plus while you sat in every board meeting. Could you move on to your next issue?
I will not, because I'm wondering what that reason is.
Well, if you're not moving on, we're going to move on to...
Are you alleging that with new information, it does not change the situation?
What I am alleging is that you should speak with your attorney and get more information about past practices. Do you have something else?
Do you have a specific statute that you're citing? Because I am citing with tons of information here and sources.
I know.
So you do not believe that we are breaking the law every single meeting by allowing a designee to participate?
Yes or no? Are you moving on to your next discussion?
Yes or no, do you agree that we are violating the law every single meeting by allowing an illegal designee to participate in this board as a member of the board?
Mr. Pilarski is no more illegal than everyone else's designees that you set.
That is false. You're a legal designee. I am a legal designee.
Mr. Harper, please go on with your report.
Judge Halsey, I would like to remind you that we are equal members of this board, you and I.
Thank you.
Not Mr. Pilarski, but you and I are.
Good afternoon,
and I would
board
like
members.
you to please respect me when we are operating in this capacity as a jail oversight board.
Visits at the Allegheny County Jail. The jail hosted visits for juveniles for the second time on March 18th. The jail is working on plans to resume contact visits for incarcerated kitchen workers in May. The jail has seen its total numbers of contactless visits more than triple since expanding to all, regardless of COVID-19 vaccination status, since February 13th. Last week, a total of 150 individuals received contactless visits. Therapy dog. The jail welcomed its first therapy dog to the facility in March. And now I would like to turn it over to our Deputy Health Service Administrator, Renee Madden, to talk more about our therapy dog.
So last month, we started our therapy dog program for the juvenile population. We know that research demonstrates that animal-assisted therapy can increase literacy skills and focusing in school settings, can reduce overall symptoms of depression or anxiety, improved moods, self-esteem, and promote positive peer interactions. It can also teach compassion and empathy for individuals who are participating. So this is a voluntary program for our juveniles. They're all screened beforehand for allergies, any potential trauma triggers prior to participating. And we have Link, who comes in. He's a 7-year-old Australian Shepherd. He's very sweet. He comes into the jail and goes down to the school where the juveniles are during the day, and he joins small groups with them. So we're really excited to have this started.
Thank you, Ms. Madden. Reintegrative services. The jail alternative housing staff held informational sessions for the alternative housing programs with the Foundation of Hope and the Veterans Recovery Center. The jail also transferred 67 individuals to alternative housing during March. The jail's diversion staff held informational sessions with the Public Defender's Trial Division to improve collaboration and utilization of the jail's diversion program. A total of 32 individuals were released to inpatient treatment through the diversion program in March. A total of 85 individuals were assisted in completing medical assistant applications to ensure that they have health insurance upon release from the facility during March. Reentry services. The SAFESERVE program has hired a new instructor, and the jail will resume offering that class later this month. Training. A total of 605 staff members have completed verbal de-escalation and interpersonal communication training. As we've noted previously, this training is in addition to and serves as reinforced the mandatory instruction that all frontline staff, to include correctional officers, undergo during job training. Training has included mental health first aid, suicide prevention, mental health disorders, CPR and first aid, interpersonal communication, professionalism and ethics, drug awareness, and the legal aspects of corrections, among others. Once initially trained, additional classes, including recertification of CPR and first aid, will be offered on a rotating basis. Our chaplains department. Approximately 170 individuals are participating in Ramadan this year. They receive double-portion dinner trays and a shahur bag to consume prior to sunrise. All those who complete the fast also participate in a fast meal at the conclusion of Ramadan. To ensure that we accommodate the needs of those participating in this observance, the jail begins the planning process months in advance. It takes a tremendous amount of teamwork, planning, and coordination with multiple jail divisions. I would like to thank all of those staff members who worked so hard together to make this religious observation possible. The chaplains department is currently working on organizing and implementing the next steps for live religious programming with the goal of beginning in May. This phase involves bringing back more staff and volunteer-led live workshops and prayer services for our Protestant, Catholic, and Muslim inmates. These are the 3 largest religious groups in our facility. We are currently working to ensure that all new and returning volunteers have the necessary clearances and update training that all the logical health and security-related concerns are addressed so that we can implement this change smoothly and safely. Throughout the pandemic, religious programming has been conducted through video services on the pod that was created by volunteers and through a rotation of staff-led live services on the pod. Additionally, staff chaplains have been present all through the pandemic to meet one-on-one with participants seeking pastoral care and to provide important religious articles such as head coverings, Bibles, Qurans, rosaries, and more. Recruitment. The jail recently hired a talent acquisition specialist to bolster our recruiting efforts for both correctional and civilian staff members. The jail participated in the recruitment fairs at the University of Pittsburgh and Seton Hill University in March and is scheduled to attend a career fair at Indiana University of Pennsylvania later this month. Additionally, the jail conducted a 2-day outreach event for criminal justice classes at Bahidi Career Center and hosted criminal justice students from the Pittsburgh Technical College and Penn State Greater Allegheny in March. Discharge and release. The Discharge and Release Center assessed 337 individuals in March. The Discharge and Release Center continues to make referrals to the community for services and assistance and to provide resources to assist individuals upon their release. The NCCHC update. The NCCHC reviews the recommendation that our staff provide as much privacy as possible when communicating with inmates about health care issues. As a result of this recommendation, we are in the process of eliminating all cell-side interviews. This has already taken place on our mental health pods, where the exam treatment rooms have been designated and equipped with needed medical equipment, tables, and chairs for these interviews. The next phase will equip the segregation units in the treatment rooms so that they can be prepared to discontinuing cell-side interviews. Then the jail will roll out this change to our general population units. We have also implemented our chronic care unit, where medically vulnerable inmates would live. And now I would like to turn it over to Dr. Brigman to discuss our critical care unit.
Our efforts to create a chronic care unit actually began in early 2020, thwarted by the pandemic, like so many things, and have been able to move forward as our COVID restrictions and staffing has improved in recent months. We received feedback from NCCHC's mortality review and found new ways to improve our original plans to support opening of this unit. We've completed our first phase of transferring chronic care patients from throughout the facility to centralize the housing location on 5 Echo. We're incredibly excited for these possibilities that such a unit brings us, and we know that we'll be increasing by increasing the efficiency of our staff, will allow for time saved by our medical assistants, nurses, providers, behavioral health team members, and will immediately return that time directly back to patient care and the continuity of care in preparation for release.
We would like to finally announce that Sergeant Christopher Barker and registered nurse Sandy Durso has been selected as employees of the month for the month of March. Last thing I would like to talk about is NA services at the Allegheny County Jail. And as we previously stated, NA services have been provided by our Foundation of Hope participants in our HOPE program. We have sent clearance paperwork for individuals interested in providing NA services to different individuals, and we have not received the clearance paperwork at this time. If you know of anybody that would like to provide NA services at our jail, please have them contact us so that we can get the clearance paperwork to them so that we can get more NA services at our jail. Now I'd like to turn it over to Chief Deputy Warden Jason Beeson.
Thank you, Warden. Good afternoon, Board. I'll begin with staffing update. I have the privilege of announcing that Ms. Connie Clark has been promoted to the Assistant Deputy Warden for Programs and Services. So congratulations, Deputy Clark. It's well deserved. The jail began a new academy class on Monday, March 27th, which consisted of 14 cadets. Over the last 2 weeks, we've completed 9 physical agility sessions and have an additional session scheduled for next Tuesday, April 11th. To date, for those agility tests, we had 60 candidates sign up. Of those, 27 participated, which is a 45% show rate. Out of the 27 that participated, 18 passed this portion, which is a 66% pass rate. State transfers, we currently have 26 males, 0 females with 300 Bs, 3 males with detainers, and 9 males with open cases. The longest wait time on a 300B was received on February 10th, and the shortest wait time was received on March 29th. Currently, federal inmates in the facility, total of 57. 43 of those are United States Marshal holds, and 14 are federal transfers for Allegheny County Court. And our use of force numbers for March 2023 was 31. I'll pass it back to Dr. Brinkman for the healthcare report.
From our old business, for COVID-19 updates, while we recognize that COVID-19 has not been eradicated, we've seen stability in its impact in our population. Transmission rates remain low for over the past year, and with that, I dedicate time spent on this reporting to other major initiatives. We're focused on support quality improvement, program expansion, and staffing. So I'm not going to be reporting on COVID procedures moving forward. For medication for opioid use disorder and the expansion of efforts, from the month of March, there were 13 prescribed oral naltrexone, with 1 receiving their Vivitrol injection prior to community release. 97 were treated on Suboxone, and 12 individuals were treated on Sublocade. Of these, 9 patients were transitioned from Suboxone to Sublocade to support their recovery. Methadone continuation services have treated 40 individuals, with currently 22 patients. Our health services team at ACJ has been continually expanding medication-assisted treatment since 2017. At that time, we added our Vivitrol program, which has been inducting patients for opioid and alcohol use disorder. Since that first expansion, we encountered major speed bumps, but not barriers. We never stopped moving forward. There are a variety of obstacles, from access to the different forms of MOUD treatments, federal regulations, community provider resources, in addition to our internal policy procedure and educational needs. When recognizing delays, we prioritize the patients who had established care in order to maintain their recovery while continuing to support the reduction of post-incarceration overdose. Despite encountering those speed bumps, we've seen our patients served increase as well as we've expanded. We've been able to care for over 120 patients in Vivitrol programs since its inception. Our buprenorphine program grew exponentially from 2020 to 2021, growing from 3 to 263 and far more now. Our Sublocade program has treated over 150 patients, and methadone programming has treated over 100 patients. With each milestone, we found ways to ensure our patients transferred to alternative housing locations have been able to continue their services. To support reduction of overdose post-incarceration, we've continuously encouraged former incarcerated individuals to receive and learn to use Narcan. In 2022, our Narcan kits distributed were at 600. Lessons learned from these expansions have taught us areas to ensure thorough strategic planning to avoid unintended consequences. Not only does ACJ need to have the resources available prior to induction, but the community as well, to ensure these patients can re-enter the community and continue their recovery. Currently, we're evaluating the scope of induction services to determine the full extent of resources needed to accomplish the goal, both within the facility and externally, to support post-incarceration stability. For Torrance, in the month of March, 8 patients were admitted and transferred to Torrance State Hospital. 20 were committed to Torrance State Hospital. 4 patients had their commitments to Torrance
competency restoration rescinded due to clinical stabilization. And currently, 32 patients are awaiting admission to Torrance State Hospital, with the longest waiting since January 6th. For mental health data in the month of March, 0 individuals were identified as Tier 5 in the tier system, and 24 unique individuals were identified as a Tier 4 in the mental health tier system. As of today, our sick call requests for medical are at a total of 9, with the longest waiting 4 days. Our sick call requests for mental health equal 1, with the longest waiting 1 day. Psychiatrists are at 108, with the longest waiting 22 days, and mental health specialists are at 7, with the longest waiting 1 day. You'll see in the warden's report for staffing that our vacancy rate is reported along with the adjusted rate when factoring in our contracted employees. Our permanent employee rate is 54.25%, decreasing down to 29.59% from the supplementation of our contracted employees. Moving forward, you'll be able to find this in the report, and I will not verbally report out those rates. Our recruitment efforts continued. The warden stole my thunder when he talked about our attendance at the University of Pittsburgh's Women in Public Safety Expo, which was held in honor of Women's History Month. For healthcare successes, I've been able in the past to give recognition to our staff for their incredible work, but I'm even more proud to share recognition that was provided to us directly from a patient. While he was not with us long, the feedback shared was filled with gratitude. Specifically, he thanked his routine nurse that, quote, keeps my blood pressure perfect, end quote. The patient stated, quote, 5-star rating. I understand that we are not perfect overall, though I would like to say that ultimately we are seeing significant improvements in a variety of areas. We will always have more work to do, which is why the process is called continuous quality improvement. And that's all I have this afternoon.
So, Your Honor, we are available for any questions you may have.
I do have one question. I have a couple of questions. The first is, how many of your incarcerated individuals observed Ramadan? I'm just curious. Do you have any idea?
It's 170. So I reported out that there was 170 that are participating in Ramadan.
I apologize, I missed that. And if you could speak to the cell side visits, and I'm discontinuing that, what is the approach that you're currently taking?
So, Your Honor, the approach that we're currently taking is that we're starting off with our mental health population. So what we've done on our mental health pods is we created exam rooms for the physical assessment, and we created behavior treatment rooms for our behavioral health providers to conduct behavioral health interviews with our mental health population. So that has been up and running. And what we also did is we met with all of the providers, we met with operational staff as a team to talk about the plan and how we're going to implement the plan. So then we went up and we toured the mental health pod with the providers, operational staff, program staff, to show them exactly how we want this done and to also solicit input from the providers as to how we can improve the process. It was a very good meeting. This is the first week that we fully implemented. It's a work in process. So the next step, Your Honor, is we're going to work on our segregation units, and then we're going to go to our general population units.
What do you think the time frame is for rolling it out to the entire facility?
I'm hoping in a couple of months, Your Honor.
A couple of months. One more question. NA services, are they currently being provided? I know there was some discussion about people not being permitted into the building. Are they currently provided?
Yes, on our HOPE program.
So the HOPE pod is providing NA services?
Yes, sir.
All right. That was my question. Ms. Hallam?
Thank you. I do have some questions, actually. My first question is, are you saying that 12-step meetings are only being provided on the HOPE pod?
NA services are provided right now only on the HOPE pod.
So if I'm incarcerated at the jail and I'm not on the HOPE pod, how do I go to a 12-step meeting?
There are 12-step meetings for Alcoholics Anonymous on our Veterans Pod with our substance use patients as well as HOPE Pod. So those are 3 different areas that are covered, but only one for Narcotics Anonymous.
Is that because of some sort of study that you did showed you that that's the only place where people who suffer from substance use disorder are housed, or why are we excluding the rest of the pods?
They're the only areas we've had access to have volunteers come in.
So as I stated before, Ms. Hallam, if you know anybody that would like to provide those services, please send their names and their information to us so we can provide more Narcotics Anonymous classes to the entire population.
Yeah, if you remember, for many meetings, there was a couple who came here asking to provide those meetings in the jail and were being denied.
And we sent them clearance forms on several occasions, and we have not received those forms, ma'am.
I will reach out to them and get them to submit them to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, where do I start? All right. So the first thing is I want to address whoever put together the pod breakdown of the use of force statistics. I don't know who that was, who I should address. There was you that I want to address the question to. I just want to understand there are three, I guess, categories of use of force that were used, and I was just wondering if you could define them for me. Control techniques, taser, I have a pretty good idea what that one means, but then active countermeasures.
So we're getting into definitions that are contained within our policy, our use of force policy. I can't get into that in a public meeting. I provided that information at your request, the location, the amount, and the type of force that was used. That's as far as I can go in this forum.
Okay, so you can't tell me like what it means to do control techniques versus what it means to do active countermeasures?
Correct.
Okay. Are those terms that are specific to the Allegheny County Jail, or are those general corrections terms?
Those are general terms.
Okay, so I can maybe look them up, is what you're saying, and get a definition, but you can't provide it in this form?
The definitions are in the policy. I'd be happy to show it to you if you come to the jail, or if in executive session, I can show you the definitions of them.
Okay. Next question is about, I know at a previous meeting it was brought up about visits for the children who are incarcerated in the jail, that they were restricted to once a month, and I was wondering if that had been changed, if they are getting more frequent opportunities for visits now?
The juveniles will not be getting more frequent visits. The next category of inmates that's going to receive contact visits is our kitchen workers, and that's going to take place in May. And then the next population we're going to deal with is our programming population, inmates that's participating in programs. So you got to realize that when we do provide those contact visits, we provide those contact visits on separate Saturdays of the month. So right now, that's the schedule thus far.
Okay, and when you say program, do you mean they actually have to be on a program pod, or is it just anyone who takes one of the classes?
Inmates that are participating in programs.
Right, and I'm asking if programs are like the Hope Pod, the Veterans Pod, or if I participate in the Stinkin' Thinking class, do I get contact visits?
Any inmates that's participating in programs, we're going to try to incentivize them for taking the program. So we're going to try to work on all inmates that's programming. We're going to try.
So classes equal programs?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. That's what I was trying to get at. I appreciate that very much. And talking about visits, I have been talking to various attorneys lately who had talked about attorney visits being restricted, specifically that in 2017, actually, when Judge Housey was the chief public defender, that there was some kind of agreement made that that opened the window from 8:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. for attorneys to visit clients, and that recently some attorneys were made aware that during count times they were unable to come in for visits with their clients. Can someone speak to that?
So if an attorney shows up to the facility during a count time, that's a lockdown time that we have to do a head count to it. So obviously that's one of the basic responsibilities we have, is to verify the location of everybody housed in the facility. If an attorney shows up prior to the count time, we'll get the attorney upstairs with their client, and that can continue through count time. So I don't know if that answered what you're
Yeah, it did. So basically you're saying if they're there already before count starts, they don't get kicked out, but they can't enter during count time.
Correct.
And that has always been the policy?
As far as I can remember.
Okay, so they've always been restricted from coming during certain times in that 8:30 to 8 p.m. window?
Yes.
Okay, and what are those times that they're restricted?
Our morning count is at 11 a.m., and then we shut down movement at 2:30 p.m. for shift change, and then a 3 o'clock count.
So is it 11 a.m. till 3 p.m., or what are the windows? Like 11 to what, 2:30 to what?
If the attorney is there before the count time starts, as long as we can get that person to the location and
I
get
understand
their
that, but
client there. So there's not, I can't say it's 5 minutes, but depending on how many people are in visits, how long the check-in takes, on how fast their client gets to the location, you know.
Well, I more mean if I'm an attorney and I show up at 11:05 a.m., I'm going to be told I have to wait until count's over.
You have to wait until the count clears.
So how long does that take?
That depends on the day. It's not a set time. I mean,
20 minutes?
it could
2
be,
hours?
It could be up to an hour.
Up to an hour, okay. And so it is up to an hour after 3 p.m. as well. So basically 11 to noon, 2:30 to 4.
Yeah, I'd say about more 2:45 until 4.
Okay, and what is the rationale for not allowing attorneys to come during count?
Because we need, at that time, we're not letting anybody move within the facility until we verify the presence of everybody and that those counts are accurate, so.
Okay, and you're saying that because you're doing count, you cannot take someone and move them while that's processing, but if it happened before or after, then it's okay?
Yeah.
All right, and again, I just want to clarify that nothing new has happened. There wasn't new signage posted at the jail that changed those restrictions, the times when attorneys can come?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
If I may, historically in the jail, attorneys were asked to leave during count time, and that is something that this administration has been more flexible. When attorneys are there during count time, they're just not permitted to go upstairs, or they have to remain wherever they are. But historically, if you came close to 2:30, you were not permitted to come in. You were not allowed to enter the facility at all. So they're not asked to leave. You just can't move around in the facility during count time, so you'd have to wait.
Yeah, I understand they're not asked to leave. I had just heard that they were being restricted on the times that they could come, that they were formerly, there was no restriction about count, and that now it was instituted again. That's not true. Okay.
Restriction in the sense that they're not permitted to move around the facility, but in the past, going back before 2011, you were not permitted to enter the facility during count time. That's not the case now.
Okay, I appreciate that clarification. My next question is specifically, Ms. Klein and I were speaking earlier before the meeting about the population of children incarcerated in the jail had increased, and then now it's about 22, I think we saw today. 22 children are incarcerated in the ACJ. And so I know at a previous meeting it had been brought up about how they are treated in the eyes of the jail as adults. So I want to specifically ask how many children were strip searched in the jail in the past year?
There's no way that we could provide that data as to how many juveniles have been strip searched. We don't keep that data, ma'am.
You don't keep data of strip searches?
We don't keep data on how many juveniles we strip search, ma'am.
Well, that sucks, but okay. Is there a reason why you don't keep track of when, such an invasive search being conducted?
We've never done it, ma'am.
Okay, but there's no reason, just that it's never been done before?
We don't keep track of any individuals of how often we strip search.
Is there not a log? I know we've referenced earlier the log of each pod. There's not a log, is that documented in the log when a strip search happens? So it could happen 100 times a day and there would be no record of it?
We have no record, ma'am.
Okay. The next question is there any additional precautions that are taken when children are strip searched compared to when adults are strip searched in the jail?
Juveniles are treated as adults, so there's no extra precautions as far as a juvenile being strip searched from an adult offender. They committed an adult crime, so we treat them as such.
Even if they're 14 years old?
They've committed an adult crime, and we treat them as such, ma'am.
Well, they were allegedly had committed an adult crime, right?
If they're in our facility, ma'am, we strip search them as we strip search our other adult offenders.
Okay. Next question is about, I had received reports about multiple overdoses that happened among specifically kitchen staff in the past few weeks, and I was just wondering if you could speak to that, why the board was not made aware of that, if any of those individuals, if you have investigated how they got the drugs, if you had to take anybody to the hospital. Can you just give us a little detail around that?
That's something that I will not discuss in this forum, ma'am. We can discuss that in an executive session.
Okay, can you confirm that multiple people in the kitchen have overdosed in the past few weeks?
I'm not going to discuss that in this forum, ma'am.
Why will you not discuss that in this forum?
I feel that it'll be jeopardizing the safety and security of the facility discussing it in this forum.
But is there a specific sunshine exemption that you're referencing why you will not speak about it in this forum?
Again, Ms. Howland, I'll be more than happy to speak to any board member about that in an executive session.
Okay, I'm just mainly concerned because I had to hear about it from not you, from not any of your administration, from not anyone on this board. How are we to know that these things are happening? Generally, if there's an overdose in the jail, how is the Jail Oversight Board to be made aware of that? Do I have to ask every day?
Ms. Hallam, I would be more than happy to discuss that with the board members in an executive session. I'm not going to discuss that in this forum.
I am not asking for you to discuss specifically the overdoses that recently happened. What I'm asking you to discuss is how the board is to know when incidents like that happen generally.
I think how the board would know is if the individual has been transported to an outside facility and the doctor at the outside facility says, hey, notify the emergency contact. That has been the procedure in the past as to when we would notify the board and or the emergency contact. So we will still keep that same process.
Only if the doctor requests it are you alerting the Jail Oversight Board?
Yes, ma'am.
That's wild. Okay. Next question is going to be, I heard some reference, I heard a public commenter that I very appreciate the statistics that you've been sharing about post-incarceration overdoses. It is something that is very near and dear to my heart. I've lost a lot of people that I love who were released from the jail and died of overdose. And I'm fortunate that I was not one of those statistics that were referenced in your public comment. And so, Dr. Brinkman, you referenced specifically giving Narcan out as people are being released, but I'm wondering if there's any other tools that are being given to people when they're incarcerated or when they're preparing for release to prevent, to either encourage safe drug use after they leave or to help prevent overdose.
Harm reduction as a whole is discussed and a mainstay of our substance use residential treatment program. So that is anyone who's participating in our substance use programs. Harm reduction is the underlying current for all of it.
And how many people are currently participating in that program?
I don't have those numbers in my head.
Are you talking about like the people who get MAT?
MAT as well as the programming that we have been doing since, I think, early 2000s.
But we already know that we're not introducing people to medications for opioid use disorder. We're only giving it to people who are already on it when they came into the jail. So I'm just wondering, all those other people who are actively using drugs prior to entering the Allegheny County Jail, how are we ensuring that they don't die of an overdose after they leave the jail?
Anyone that would potentially go through detox protocols or things like that, we're making connection with to attempt to get them to join our substance use programming. So we're publicly trying to involve them in treatment while they're with us, even if it isn't MAT.
And is it all based off self-disclosure and intake? Like, I need to come into the jail and say, I'm actively using, I need to be in detox protocol for that to be initiated?
Well, we would be doing things like a urine drug screen to see if that's a concern, and with the monitoring that happens in intake to determine if somebody would be withdrawing, would allow them to be assessed and potentially start detox protocols. That's the largest captive audience we have to try and, I don't want to say recruit, but really try and get them to join programming.
Okay, and what type of harm reduction practices are implemented for those folks?
There's a lot of education in the curriculum, so it's all based on what's going on in the curriculum and in their individual sessions.
Right, so can you give me some topics that are covered? I'm wondering, like, are we talking like needle exchanges? Are we talking like fentanyl test strips? Or like what kind of harm reduction practices? Don't use alone? I mean, what?
No. Sorry, it was just the way you said that. It's talking about understanding that once you've had a period of sobriety that you would be at higher risk for overdose, and understanding what your own recovery is so that you can make those decisions. So it's all what's happening in typical counseling sessions. It's going to be very specific to the patient.
Okay, but you do talk about tolerance. It's not all abstinence-based counseling?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Abstinence only doesn't work for everybody.
I agree. And MOUD induction, I know you referenced it. I mean, you know, when I tell you, we have heard it referenced for, years. I feel like it's been now. I keep saying months, but eventually it has turned into years that we're being told MOUD induction is going to start. I know a staff person was hired specifically to around the MOUD program, and I'm just wondering if you can give a realistic timeline for when that induction on medications would start.
There is already induction on Vivitrol. So I just want to be clear that MOUD and MAT is a very broad spectrum. So there are options for people to be inducting there, but we are trying to figure out what that full scope would be so that we know all the resources that we're going to need, because it's not only resources within the facility, it's also resources so that these people will have support as they leave and have a home clinic, since they wouldn't have had home clinics coming to us.
Okay, so how are you deciding who you're starting on Vivitrol?
That's voluntary based on the patients.
So anybody who says, I want Vivitrol can get it?
There would be they would be meeting, we do a screening process on an evidence-based screening tool, and then they would be doing some lab work to make sure that they're appropriate candidates medically.
And why the distinction between Vivitrol and other methods of MOUD and MAT?
In all honesty, it occurred before I joined the jail, so I don't know what the decision-making was at that time.
Does anyone else know it? What were you saying the first dose?
My understanding was that the first dose of Vivitrol was administered free.
So we do oral, there's an oral pill that you can be taking while you're in our care, and then at release, we initiate the first injection.
Yeah, I'm just wondering why more people aren't having access to that in other methods of MOUD. So we're evaluating patients to decide whether or not they're applicable, the drug is applicable for them, but we're limiting it to Vivitrol.
That's the only area that we have the full access to do complete induction for.
And is that like a legal thing? I'm just trying to understand why you only have access to that.
It's a resource thing. As I talked about earlier, we have to make sure that we internally and the community can support the volume of patients.
Yeah, it sounds like there's some really great resources around here to help with that. And I know, a year and a half ago, I had a conversation with a methadone provider who was super willing to work with the jail, and those conversations ceased. And so I'm just wondering if you're the person I should talk to try and reconnect that, because I had been under the impression all this time that there was a methadone provider that the jail had been working with to try to figure out the logistics of.
We do, and they're currently providing services.
But not for induction?
Not yet, no.
Okay. The next question I have was, I know every election we're hearing reports about how many people are participating in voting in the jail, and I'm wondering if the jail is taking any additional efforts to increase those numbers, because they seem to hover around 10 to 20 people in the jail out of 1,500 every election.
Every time we have an election, we always make sure that the incarcerated individuals are aware that they can vote. We post posters on the pod. We educate on the tablets. We got a video on the tablets. We're going to continue to make sure that the incarcerated individuals are knowledgeable about the election, as we've done in the past.
So I know that. I know what you do already. I'm just wondering if there's anything new that has been done looking at those numbers saying these are kind of disappointing.
If you have any ideas as to how we can increase it, we are willing to listen to the ideas. But any idea that anybody can provide to us how we can increase voting at our jail, send us your ideas. We'll look at it.
Okay, I just know that multiple organizations, nonpartisan organizations, have come here and given public comments offering to help. And I know there was another organization, I believe All Voting is Local, that had offered to do that in the past, and COVID had kind of put a damper on plans. So who is the person for those organizations to reach out to about those initiatives?
They can reach out to me, Chief Beeson, or the deputy.
Mr. Pischke, who runs the AIU, also handles a lot of the election coordination. They have communications out already about if you are registered, how you go about voting, if you want to register, how you can get registered. So that process has already started. Mr. Pischke works with our caseworker pool to get that information out to all the housing units. So, but if those organizations can reach out to, like I said, Mr. Pischke or anybody that the warden just said, we'll put them in contact.
Okay, great. The next question is, what are the visiting hours, or are they different on each pod? Are they consistent throughout the jail?
You're talking social visits?
Yeah, visiting. It doesn't need to
not
be
attorney visits,
contact.
you're asking.
Not attorney visits, correct.
So we open the visiting lobby at 8 a.m., and that goes through 12 right before the 11 o'clock count. We resume after that about noon until 2:30, and then again after the 3 p.m. count, 3:30, 4 p.m. until 7 p.m. The last visit goes upstairs.
So it is similar to the attorney
Very similar.
availability.
Yeah.
Okay. Who is denied in-person visits?
Who's denied?
Like, is there anyone, like if I showed up to the jail to visit someone, is there someone who could be, on a tier status or in on RHU or anything like that that would not be allowed to receive a visit?
Anybody on a tier 4 or 5 status, if they're not deemed to be safe out of cell, then we would deny the visits. Anybody on segregated housing is approved on a case-by-case basis after the visit is requested.
Okay. Next question is, specifically you're referencing tier 4 and 5. We were told at a previous meeting some conflicting information, specifically about tier 4 and 5 and out of cell time. And I think it was Dr. Brinkman who specifically said that there was no default denial of rec for those tiers 4 and 5.
I'm not sure I understand what you're asking. No default what?
At a previous meeting, I don't remember if it was last meeting or the meeting before, you had stated that folks who are classified under tier 4 and 5 are not automatically denied rec time.
Correct. Wait.
Are folks who are on tier 4 or 5 allowed to have rec?
If somebody is deemed so unsafe that they should not be able to be out of their cell, then they would not be able to come out of their cell. But tier 4 and 5s are offered the 4 hours.
Okay, but I have seen emails, I have seen statements in previous jail oversight board meetings that contradicts that said that tier 4 and 5 inmates do not receive out of cell rec during their time under that status. And you're saying that's not true? That it's only certain individualized determinations that are made?
The only exceptions would be when the providers made the recommendation that they shouldn't come out.
Okay, but everyone else on tier 4 and 5 gets 4 hours of rec a day at least?
Right.
Okay. The other thing is, and I know it was brought up in a public comment about the story from PA Spotlight and Pinch. Have you all read that article specifically about Rachel Bridgman? Yeah. Did the board get an opportunity to read that article? It's very interesting. Basically, a summary of her situation is that she was at the ACJ for stealing a bag of chips, allegedly. She was placed on a behavioral health hold. The ACJ designated her as a tier 5. She was subjected to inhumane conditions that forced her to beat her face into the wall. I have seen her injuries myself. Only after a law firm sent a letter on Rachel's behalf that informed Warden Harper and Dr. Brinkman that keeping her in these conditions violated the Constitution, ADA, and the solitary confinement referendum did they drop her categorization down to a tier 3. After she got more out of cell time and had contact with other people, shockingly, her mental health condition improved drastically. And even after her condition improved enough that she was able to communicate with the law firm's staff, they were able to track down her sister. Her family had never even been contacted about any of her medical incidences, about her incarceration. They had no idea she was even in jail, and I hadn't heard that part, but a public commenter had said that her family actually assumed that she was dead and was hanging out wanted posters. And so have you learned anything from reading about this experience about how we can better serve individuals under our tier classification system?
First of all, Ms. Howland, you know that we cannot talk about pending litigation, so we're not going to talk about any pending litigation. And And I think all of us will agree that we try to do everything in our power to make sure that the experiences of our incarcerated individuals is appropriate. But as far as pending litigations, we cannot discuss that.
Okay, generally, have you changed any of the policies and procedures around the tiered mental health system in the past year or two?
No.
Cool, all right. Do folks on the tier 4 and 5 get contact visits?
No.
Like, just by default, they don't get contact visits?
As the warden talked about earlier, the only contact visits we're doing are juvenile
programs,
kitchen workers and programs.
What about phone calls?
Based on the assessment that would have been done to determine what their safety level was, they're not provided access to things like that, which is pretty typical with somebody who might be on an involuntary hold.
Okay, but no one on tier 4 or 5 gets phone calls?
Correct.
Okay, does anyone on tier 4 or 5 get tablet access?
No.
Is anyone on tier 4 or 5 allowed to have personal items in their cell?
Not to my recollection.
Okay. Not even like photos, letters, anything like that? Commissary items, anything?
I don't think so.
Okay. Are they able to exercise in the gym?
That's based on the provider's assessment of their stability.
So there are some folks who are classified under tier 4 or 5 who are able to exercise in the gym?
Based on the provider's recommendation.
Right, so yes, there are some.
Yes.
Okay. Are people on tier 4 or 5 able to participate in any jail programming?
No, at that time, the primary focus is to stabilize them so that they could be able to participate in other things.
Okay. So then another thing, going back to something that I read in the media, because that has seemed to be like a consistent theme that I, as a jail board member, read and hear a lot in the media, more than I get out of this meeting from you all. So Dr. Brinkman, you did an interview with NPR. Do you recall that interview?
Yes.
Okay, and so during that interview, you actually discussed an incarcerated individual's lab results in highlighting the successes of the jail's medical program. Do you remember talking about that?
I don't remember the details off the top of my head right now.
Okay, I can read the quote for you. So the host says, and this was on November 5th, can you give us an example of what the medical crisis was? And then you gave, a pretty detailed explanation, because the team was able to be seeing the patient a little bit sooner than they would have been waiting. They saw he had some unusual lab values when they were doing their standard primary care visit, and were able to get them more urgently to a higher level of care so that they can get taken care of because of those warning signs that we found. Do you remember saying that?
Something like that, yes.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if you believe that that general discussion of a medical incident at the Allegheny County Jail and listing the healthcare services that an incarcerated individual received is a violation of HIPAA.
Those do not meet the criteria for protected health information.
Right, I didn't think so, but yet here, over and over again at these meetings, we are denied that same level of general information, and I'm just wondering what the difference is between NPR and the Jail Oversight Board.
Usually the context of what I'm being asked for is much more detailed than that.
No, I mean specifically one of the things that I had asked about the number and type of healthcare services that incarcerated individuals receive, whether at the jail or at the hospital, not anything about an individual person. So what is the difference between those two things?
There's different reasons that we had said that we weren't sharing that information than just HIPAA. And I believe we talked about that at length. So I'm not going to repeat it.
But it's just that we talk about it and you say that we can't get this information, and then I hear it on the radio and I read about it in the newspaper. And I'm just wondering if you could clarify what the difference is between telling NPR that an incarcerated individual had some unusual lab values and was taken to the hospital, and telling the Jail Oversight Board when an incarcerated individual has unusual lab values and is taken to the hospital.
I'm not going to further discuss that in this forum.
Okay, so you don't see a difference there? Because I don't see one at all.
I'm not going to further discuss that in this forum.
Okay. The next question is, so in the warden's report about the healthcare services, it says that there were 25 individuals that were taken to the emergency room from February 16th to March 15th. Can you speak generally about what some common reasons were for incarcerated individuals being taken to the emergency room?
Ms. Hallam, there's no way we would know that at this time, ma'am, and we would not discuss that in this forum. There's no way we would know why 25 individuals transferred to an emergency room.
In the past 3 months, there were nearly 100 emergency room runs.
Well, you just said 25. It's no way
that was in the past 1 month.
But what I'm saying is we would not have that information to discuss that now, and nor would we discuss that in this forum, Ms. Hallam.
And why would you not discuss that in this forum?
I don't think that it would be appropriate to discuss that in this forum, Ms. Hallam.
Because of what reason?
HIPAA reasons, safety and security reasons. If you want information to that nature, we'd be more than happy to discuss all of that with you in an executive session.
So you believe that talking generally, not about an individual's specific medical diagnosis or medical treatment, but generally about medical treatment for incarcerated individuals is not something you can discuss in this forum?
I don't think we can discuss that in this forum, ma'am.
Okay, I am pretty sure you're wrong, but we can revisit that at another time. What about surgeries? So in the past 3 months, it lists 13 surgeries. Do you remember any of those 13 surgeries and why those are happening?
No, ma'am.
Okay. What about the cost of how much it costs the jail to or the county to transport someone to the hospital?
We don't have that information.
Is that information that you would be able to get?
I'm not sure, ma'am.
Okay. Please look into that for the next meeting. I would like to know specifically how much it costs to transport an incarcerated individual to the hospital and how much a hospital stay costs, whether it's a per day, per week, how much we're paying for these individuals to go to the hospital. And out of any, generally, hospital visits, surgeries that were required, does the jail ever receive feedback about how these emergency runs or surgeries could have been prevented via care at the jail?
I'm not sure what kind of feedback you are asking that we would get.
I'm just wondering if someone goes to the hospital, does the jail ever say, hey, if they would have gotten this medical treatment, it wouldn't have came to this. This is something that could be added to their health care plan in the jail while they're in the jail's custody.
We, as a team, we look at what kind of quality improvement measures we can make.
And do you do that for every person that is taken to the hospital?
I can't say for sure.
Okay. So going forward, I would very much like that information and how many incarcerated individuals are hospitalized every month, how long they're staying there. And also, the CDC and health departments and hospitals are already reporting, number information. We're not asking for any uniquely identifying medical information, but just generally, what type of procedures and healthcare services are being offered to incarcerated individuals.
And Ms. Hallam, we will provide you all of that information, but we will only provide that in an executive session. We're not going to provide all that information in this open forum. So
you keep saying that, but
we will
when?
provide you all that information, but in an executive session.
And of all these, dozens of executive sessions that you keep referencing, why haven't you called one to provide that information?
It's not for him to call. It's for you to call. If you want,
I can call an executive session?
If you would like to have an executive session, you can have them. However, the ones that we've had, for whatever reason, you can't remember being near the information that was shared. Do you have another question?
I never said I was not in an executive session. I specifically earlier was referencing not receiving a legal opinion.
If I may, a lot of the questions you ask out here, you've been given answers back there. And for whatever reason, when you get out here, you don't remember the discussion or remember the answers. It's disingenuous.
When is the last time we've had an executive session, Judge Hauser?
When you wanted to discuss the deaths in the jail.
That is the only executive session information I have received, and you forbid me from talking about it in this session.
But you went back there, you had an opportunity to ask the people that came every question you wanted about every death in the jail, the manner, the cause of death, how it occurred. There was every person person was discussed in detail, and you sat back there, you had no questions, then you come out here and you say, no one ever tells me why people die in the jail, and it's not true. It's disingenuous.
Judge Halsey, have I once asked a question about a death in the jail since that executive session?
Whether it's the death in the jail, whether it's the referendum, whether it's the legal opinion, whether it's why someone was taken to the hospital, you get this information, you have access to the information.
I do not.
And you disregard the information the minute you hit this stage. Do you have another question?
I will clarify the one thing that we have got information from, and it was about the deaths in the jail, and I was told I was not allowed to bring that up in meetings, and I have not.
That's not the only thing. It's not.
That is when was that executive session?
Ms. Allen, you've had countless executive sessions. You had one regarding the weapons that are being confiscated.
Correct, that was one. I haven't asked about that.
Countless, and you, for whatever reason, when you come out here, you act as if you've never had the information, and you ask these questions, and it's disingenuous because you get the information. Could you please move on?
I believe that what you're saying right now is disingenuous because I do agree that we had 2 executive sessions that were about those 2 things, the deaths in the jail and weapons in the jail, and we were told that we could not talk about anything that was brought up in those meetings. I have not talked about anything that was brought up in those meetings, and I'm specifically asking all these other questions that I'm still never getting answers to. Things that are not appropriate for executive session that are being refused to us as a board in this setting, without any explanation as to why they won't be shared with us.
Do you have another question?
Why do we have public meetings if everything is to be discussed in executive sessions?
Do you have another question?
I have plenty more
Let's
questions.
hurry up.
Yeah. Okay. The next thing is, speaking of the questions that I'm asking that are not getting answered, I want to reference again the Jail Oversight Board statute that is very clear that one of this board's duties are the oversight of the health and safekeeping of incarcerated individuals and the confirmation of the chief executive selection of the warden. So that actually, reminds me, Warden Harper, could you tell us when you were confirmed as the warden by this board?
What is that?
I don't have that information available, ma'am. I don't remember.
Were you confirmed by this board?
No one on this board was present when he was confirmed.
That's why I'm asking him himself and not anyone on this board.
Why does it matter? What does it matter? Why?
Let her answer it.
Why does it matter? Why does that matter?
It doesn't matter.
Ms. Hallam. Ms. Hallam.
I'm sorry, I can answer you after I get an answer to my previous question.
That question matter?
It is the law, and I thought that, with judges and other, experienced people on this board, that we would follow the law, and it seems that over and over again we're not, so I would like to hear.
Does a question about him being confirmed have to do with anything when he's about to leave?
Is he?
And there's about to be a new county exec. Why?
Are you leaving, Warden Harper?
What happened 12 years ago? Meaning, whenever a new county exec comes in, he's already indicated he won't be working there anymore. So why do we need to talk about what happened 12 years ago?
We don't know who the next county executive is yet.
We know it won't be Rich Fitzgerald.
But anyways, I do not appreciate you acting as a filter between the rest of the board members and the jail.
It's not that.
It is.
That. You know what it is?
I would like Warden Harper to please answer my question.
I'm only saying, Ms. Hallam, what everyone else is thinking. You drag these meetings out. You ask these questions ad nauseum. Most of them you've had the answer to, and you're just dragging out looking for I got you moments. If you have a legitimate question, ask it.
I am asking a legitimate question that I have wondered for some time. I have read Jail Oversight Board meeting minutes going back. I've never seen a confirmation. It is timely because it was again brought up by public comment today. And so I'm wondering if you could tell me if you were confirmed as the warden of the jail by the Jail Oversight Board.
I do not remember at this time.
Okay. Thank you very much. And going along to that, continuing along with the statute, the statute is very clear that the board shall investigate allegations of inadequate prison conditions and improper practices occurring within the prison. Blah, blah, blah. The papers and records of the warden and those relating to incarcerated individuals shall at all times be available for inspection by the board. So I just want to remind you that you do have a statutory duty to provide the information that you are refusing to provide us here. The next thing is that, we got those NCCHC reports, and I do want to state for the record again that I thought it was very disingenuous for Mr. Backrack, I'm guessing the warden's legal counsel, to deliver that report to us 2 months after it was published and at the beginning of our last jail oversight board meeting. I believe that that was intentional so that we did not have time to review it prior to the last meeting, and hoping that we wouldn't ask about it at the next meeting. So I just want to say that any information to be presented to this board, it has been requested by Judge Halsey, along with the rest of us, that we are given information to be discussed at the board meeting ahead of time. Putting it in our lap at the start of a meeting is super just shady. Please don't do that anymore. But that one of the things that report said is that the mental health staff at the jail lack resources and independence to administer care based on industry standard, and that staff reported that there are residents with significant mental health issues that they cannot adequately care for. I'm wondering if you all could respond to that.
The only response that I'm going to give is the recommendations made by NCCHC. As I stated before, we're working to try to resolve a lot of the recommendations or implement the recommendations, as I stated before. So we're going to continue to implement the suggestions from the NCCHC, and that's all I can say as far as that report.
Were one of the suggestions about the uniform standards, because I saw that that was updated around the same time that that report came out, and it was referenced in a public comment today about the uniform standards being updated regarding professional standards for uniforming?
I don't understand the question, Ms. Allen.
You updated the uniform standards policy at the jail, and it was updated at a similar time that the NCCHC report came out, and I'm asking if that was the reason for the change in that policy.
NCCHC has nothing to do with the update of our uniform policy, no.
What was the reason for the update of the uniform policy, specific, the language that was referenced earlier, the professional standards?
It was due for an update, so we updated.
Okay, can you explain what those professional standards are?
I cannot.
Why can you not explain that?
Because I can. I need to look at the policy and see exactly what it is. So, Ms. Allen, I cannot explain that at this time.
Okay, I would appreciate you bringing that to the next meeting. Another question I have is about the grievance system. So I know I hear from incarcerated individuals that I talk to a lot about the grievance system, and that they feel that grievances go unanswered, not responded to. So I was wondering if you could tell me what is the purpose of the jail's grievance system?
You're talking about complaints from inmates? What do you mean the purpose?
What is the purpose of the system? Is it to identify problems? Is it to help resolve problems? Is it to keep a log of problems? What is the reasoning for it?
All the above, yes.
All of the above. And what is the process for reviewing grievances?
So when an inmate files a grievance, there's several drop downs on the tablet as far as where the grievance is going, depending on if it's a kitchen, a healthcare, if they want to send something to the warden's group, whatever it may be. Then the individuals in those groups have a certain amount of time to review it and respond to it.
Okay, and so I have here that the drop-down is inmate account, food service, mailroom, maintenance, records, mental health, medical, staff conduct, jail procedure, property, and other.
I believe there's more than that, but
There are more than those?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay, who gets the?
Or you're talking about the grievance categories, not where they're going, you're asking.
Correct, I'm talking about the grievance categories that
Sorry,
there are.
you are correct, yes.
Those are them, okay. And are grievances filed only electronically or also on paper?
Electronically.
Okay, is there any opportunity to file them on paper?
We still have paper in limited capacity.
Okay. And so those paper forms aren't available on every housing pod?
They used to be. I'd have to follow up. I don't want to give you inaccurate information.
And how are paper grievances communicated to the proper area?
Once it's filled out, it's a carbon copy form. There's 3 pieces of paper. The white and the yellow copy go in the grievance mailbox that's located on every housing unit. The individual that files it keeps the pink copy. And then that's taken to a particular area in the jail where it's then assigned by a captain to the particular person that needs to answer it.
And is there any sort of data collection about total number of grievances filed? How many were found valid? How many were dismissed?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, so is there a way that you could keep a record of that? I'm trying to keep track of how many grievances are being filed, seeing if they're specifically being filed in certain areas more than others about certain issues. Like, for example, are we getting tons of food service grievances? Are we getting, no medical grievances? Trying to figure that out.
So that's all tracked in, the grievances are contained in our OMS operating system. So that's something I would have to ask DIT, Information and Technology, if they would be able to pull stats or data from.
Can you ask them that for me?
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
And then, going back again to requesting people from the jail who come and talk to us. I know we had asked for the medical director to come here before, and we had been shut down on that. Is there any way we could get the dental practitioner to come here?
I can talk to the vendor to see if that's something they're comfortable with.
Okay, is the vendor for dental the same, like is it AHN because AHN's medical? No, who is the vendor for dental?
We work through DenTrust.
Can you say that again?
DenTrust.
DenTrust, like trust the dentist? Okay, cool. Yeah, can you find out if that's something that they'd be willing to do? I just want to understand that process a little more. And then the other thing is, I know we have recently acquired the minutes from the Jail Oversight Board meetings on the tablets, and I'm wondering if through that same initiative that the jail would post the solitary confinement referendum on the tablet as a document that they can access.
That's something we can look into.
Okay, can you look into that and report back for the next meeting? Thank you very much. Next thing is specifically about tablets. I had heard from some folks with disabilities that they were unable to use the tablets when they get them because they can't do a voice activation on them, and that's not something I'm super familiar with, but I was just wondering if you could speak to how the tablets are accessed and how people with disabilities are able to utilize access to the tablets. Is it like type in a passcode? Is it fingerprints? Is it, I don't know, eyeball?
They log on with a PIN number and a photo is captured.
Okay. Is there any way for people who are unable to see a tablet screen that they could use it, like, I forget what they call it, like screen readers, so that they can read what's on the tablet out loud?
I can check with the tablet vendor. I don't know, to be honest.
And then the other thing is, I know we had asked for this before, but I'm just looking for blank documents, so I hope that that's something that can be provided, but specifically copies of medical releases and forms that the incarcerated individuals fill out when they come into jail, whether it's to list a emergency contact or anything like that. I would very much like to see what they are given to assign an emergency contact or release of information.
Let me look into, you said blank documents?
Yeah, I don't need anybody's name on it. I just want to see the blank form that is filled out for each incarcerated individual.
Are you asking just for the purposes of them listing an emergency contact? Is that the root information you're trying to get at?
Anything about like who would be notified, or if they want to request to release medical information, anything like that. Forms that are filled out, again, I do not need anybody's information on them. They can be blank. I just want to see specifically what information is collected, how they are asked for it, how the questions are phrased.
And how they can get information shared with others. That's what you're getting at?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. And then specifically about that, I really did learn a lot reading the NCCHC's most recent report. But I'm wondering if the estates of the folks who were, studied for purposes of the NCCHC, if their estates released authorization for their information to be given to the NCCHC.
Pretty sure.
Okay.
We're not able to talk about that right now.
Okay, but are you aware if any information release was signed by their estate? Because it seems to me that in order to conduct that report, the NCCHC death report, that they would have had to have access to a lot more information than we have been given access to. And I'm just wondering how that doesn't violate their HIPAA rights.
That contract was executed by the county executive's office, so I don't know the answer.
If only he was here to tell us, you know? Okay, yeah, if you could find that out for me, just if there was any communication with their estate, and if not, why it felt that was not a breach of HIPAA, but giving that information to us is. And I think that is the only questions I have, so.
Does anyone else have any questions? Controller?
Yeah, I just have one thing. I think we covered a lot, and most of my questions as well, so I want to thank her for that. But as a lot of you know, in this area that came, public comment, board members, my office, we've been trying for months to pass or move forward a motion that we are not going to move forward, and that is about notifications. So what we have done is we've asked board members for their opinion, for their amendments, so we have a document. It pushes the ball, I think, a little bit forward. So what we're gonna do is a totally different approach. Since our office posts everything, we are gonna post our updated notifications that a collective group came together. The board members, some of us responded to that. So we are gonna post that on our site. We are asking that the warden responds to why we can do some of the things, why we can't. And then we'll get answers and we can go regroup, figure out how to move that ball forward, because family members deserve notifications. Whether it's the healthcare industry that's blocking it, that's fine. I think we just deserve to know who that is. So I'm asking the warden tonight, hopefully by next week we can, have our draft, or not even our draft, I mean, the draft's ready, but we're gonna post it on our site, asking the warden to respond. And I will be honest, I mean, his Blythe was helpful in having some context information with my office's attorney, Encore, about what we can do, what we can't. But I think, when we're looking and reviewing our policies and our procedures that we've heard about for months, when I thought it was a simple amendment or a motion turned into nothing. So I'm frustrated by that. I know other board members are as well, and the community that came to the table. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna post it next week. Hopefully we can get some responses as to what direction we're going. If we're in the right one, the wrong one, just tell me that information and who we have to talk to. If I'm guessing some of this is gonna be hospital procedure, but I'm willing to have that conversation with the hospital as well, because I think notifications need to happen a lot quicker than they are now. There were some compromise hours in that. As you'll see, it will be posted next week. Just wanted to say, thank you to the board members that responded, that we had conversations about it. I also want to thank my staff. Encore's been working on this for the last couple months, as well as community members that chipped in as well. And as I mentioned, the warden's office, Blythe, did come over and have a meeting. So just asking that when we post it, we can get some answers on what direction we're going and what's stopping us from doing something like this. So that's my only question. Or comment, I don't even know, request.
Ms. Hallam.
Yeah, I just wanted to know if you could just speak to why it was not presented as a motion and put it on the website instead, or the questions asked in the meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I just think the questions have been asked multiple times. I think board members have had the motion a number of months, and I'm just going to go with, sort of new to the board, but I'm going to go with this direction so that the public sees the document. We can get answers publicly. I think this is going to be a new approach, but this is, as our office posts all these things, if motions aren't going to go forward, I think this is the way to try and move some of these items forward. So
But
I'm gonna
why-
try that approach.
Why do you think the motion won't go forward if you introduce it?
I just didn't get many responses from board members, and it didn't look like there was any initiative that we wanted to push forward. So we got some feedback, but at this point, it's now a final document from us asking the warden to respond to it, and we'll go from there. If we have to do another motion, it's asking on policies and procedures. So these are questions we've already asked, but now that we put it in a document, I think this is a way that we're going to try. Hopefully it gets a response. If not, we can come back, go to each member and try to move that ball forward as well. I know there are some concerns about the motion as well, but I think getting detailed information in writing back as to where the motion is wrong, where it's right, what we can do, what we can't do, would be helpful in drafting possibly another motion to put it into code or into our policies and procedures.
So, Mr. O'Connor, we will definitely look at the document, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that one of the reasons it's a complete safety risk to release that information when there's a deputy at that hospital watching that person by themselves.
Just to say a person went to the hospital?
Yes.
Okay, well, we have like so many hospitals around here and tons of floors and tons of rooms in all those hospitals.
Everyone there knows where they go. They all know. There's one contractor. Everyone knows where they go. We've had this happen in the past where family members have shown up and they weren't notified.
Mr. Cabrera, you have any questions? Mr. Pilarski? Ms. Klein? Chief?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.